It's weird because when I cook them, it's always a treat for me when I do that.
All right, good morning, everyone. You guys ready to get started? Yeah, I'm excited. Who's excited to be here? Good, good. I see we have some stragglers coming in at the moment. There's probably going to be a few more. Just, as you see them come in, help them make space so that we can make room for everybody. So let me just start with a few housekeeping things. First off, I'm going to go back there and mute that, and then I'll come back. I'm going to mute myself so I don't hear myself, but not mute myself. All right. And that's better than the last workshop where I talked for 30 minutes and then realized that I was on mute and nobody else was hearing me. I'd rather hear myself than nobody hear me at all. Yeah, so, okay, so this is a long one. This is a big one. We're planning on 3 hours, which is why we're serving you guys lunch. So if you need coffee, make your way over there, grab some coffee. You guys probably saw it. It's got some protein in there. It's got some coconut oil in there. It's got a little bit of monk fruit in there. Once it's out, I'm not going to be able to make any more until the break. The break is when you guys are going to get lunch. And we've got chicken Caesar salad, organic, with healthy dressings for you guys. That put some chicken on there as well. So, but the break is just for lunch. So if you guys want supplements, if you need to buy anything, we're not doing that at break. We're going to save that till the very end after we get through the entire challenge so you can understand what you're buying, right? So just so you know, if you need to use the restroom, just sneak to the back. Try not to get in the way of the camera or anybody else that's trying to be here. But yeah, so yeah, no, this is a big one. This is probably, like I say this about every single class, but this is the most important class. Well, and it is true, and maybe it's more true for some people than other people, depending on the class that you're sitting in. Like, when we talked about cancer last fall, if you have cancer, that was the most important class, and then, last spring, sometime we did cardiovascular health. And if you have, cardiovascular issues, that was probably the most important class. But this class, this is about metabolic health. And metabolic health is at the root of everything. Like if you're talking about cancer, it's metabolic health. If you're talking about heart disease, it's metabolic health. If you're talking about diabetes, it's metabolic health. If you're talking about losing weight, it's metabolic health. If you're talking about being healthy and having the energy and living until you're 105 without any signs and symptoms of any sort of disease in your body, it's metabolic health. So if you want to live to your full potential, if you want to reverse disease, I'm glad you're here today because this is really what it's about. But we're going to talk about, there's so much. And for those of you that really love to learn, the bulk of this talk, we pulled nuggets out of a podcast, a 3-hour podcast. So yeah, another 3 hours afterwards, right? Listen to it on like 1.25 speed, but you're going to need to listen. Like, how many times did you have to listen to it?
Well, I listened to it once and then I went back with a piece of paper and notepad.
Yeah. So yeah, you're going to listen to it multiple times. It's a podcast from Huberman Labs. He's a Stanford professor, neurobiologist. So studying the neurology of biology. And he brings in Dr. Robert Lustig. So for those of you that have been patients with us for a while, Dr. Lustig is the guy that talks about how bad sugar is for you, right? So, and he's probably, he's a pediatric endocrinologist. And so they just go back and forth with the science. They're, he's spouting this research study and he's saying, well, what about this research study? And they go back and forth. And so it's a conversation there. And we're going to kind of have a conversation in front of you guys too. We're not going to try to mimic exactly what they do because theirs is so high level science. But if you like research studies, if you like diving really deep into the information, then that's the next step after today is to go listen to that podcast. But it's Huberman Labs, Dr. Andrew Huberman, and Dr. Robert Lustig. And that one was done just a few months ago. You can find it on YouTube. It was a little harder to find on Spotify just for listening, but they do a good job of getting that out there. So yeah, we're going to really get into this stuff today. My number one priority as much as anything is to give you information that you can consume and then have action steps with. You guys, how many of you have been to more than one of my classes before? Yeah, that's most of the room. There's a couple of you that this is the first time, and for those of you, good job. Like the first step, right? Isn't buying the gym membership. It's what? It's showing up and doing the work. And this is not buying the gym membership. This is stepping up and doing the work. So I applaud all of you. You guys are the lifelong learners. And we're going to be getting into all sorts of things. So some of the things I want you guys to take away from the day. Number one, we're going to be talking about something called time-restricted feeding, which has better connotations than intermittent fasting, but it's the same principle and why everybody should be doing it to some extent or another. So I'm going to give you some practical steps and how to implement that even at the most basic level that anybody can do. We're going to be talking about disease prevention and how lifestyle things affect that. We're going to talk about the things that are toxic in our life that we might have no idea about and where we're getting those at and how to avoid those exposures. And most of all, guys, I want to give you early access to the latest 30-day challenge, which is designed to take you from where you are to where you want to be and give you that jump start in the next 30 days. Now, a lot of people, they see this is the weight loss challenge. No. This is not the weight loss challenge, right? Just like this is not the weight loss talk. Everybody thinks metabolism, I'm here to lose weight. No, some of you might be here to lose weight, but when you get your metabolic health better and you need to lose weight, guess what happens? The weight comes off. When you get your metabolic health better and you need to gain weight, what happens? Gain it. And the same thing is true with chronic diseases as well. So metabolic health being at the root of that is where we're going with this today. So a little bit about us for those of you that haven't been to one of these things before. I'm Dr. Jake Tucker. I'm the owner of the clinic. I started this clinic about, 7.5 years ago now. I've been in practice for over 10 years now, which is kind of odd to say. But yeah, the clock keeps ticking and we keep rolling. But yeah, I'm a chiropractor, which metabolic health, like what does that have to do with cracking people's backs, right? Well, this started all the way back when I was 2 weeks old. I stopped breathing in my mother's arms while she was feeding me. And that started a 6-month journey of trying to figure out what the heck was happening because every single night, 14 times a night, I would just quit breathing. And nobody could figure out what was going on. You can imagine, I was in emergency rooms. I was in the specialist office. I was, my parents were not sleeping trying to keep me alive. And nobody could tell them what was going on. I was living on, ventilators and O2 sensors and monitors and, doing all the different brain scans and chest and lung tests and everything that science knew at that point to try, they did. Well, 6 months later, due to the love and care of a good friend of hers, my mom finally walked into a chiropractor's office with me in her arms. And that chiropractor took one look at me and knew exactly what the problem was. He went right to the top of my neck, and my little atlas was shoved so far over to the side, it was pressing on my brainstem and shutting down my respiratory function. And he did one adjustment, and I've never had a breathing problem since. Yeah, no, amen. So we'll just summarize the journey real quickly. I didn't know that story because I was only 6 months old until I was 28 years old. I had no clue. So my journey was basically Didn't know what I wanted to do, but was sent to engineering school because my parents are like, "You're smart. You need to be an engineer." Didn't like engineering. Too much computer work, not enough personal interaction. Um, Left that, went into ministry. So if you get a few scripture verses coming out of me today, that's because I was a pastor. Felt like that wasn't God's call for my life, and ended up kind of backdoor into chiropractic school just because I felt like God's gifting on my life was in healthcare. And it was a week after I got to chiropractic school that my mom's like, "Hey, you know the story about you going to the chiropractor when you were 6 months old?" And I was like, "I had no idea." And so I went from just thinking I was there to help people in general, and yes, chiropractic can help people with back pain and neck pain and headaches, to like, oh my goodness, chiropractic can help people with everything. And we'll get into a little bit more about why that is when we get into metabolism. Now, let me introduce the star of the show. Yeah, I might be big and tall and have had my name on the front door since the beginning, but Cheryl's been a patient almost since the beginning. I had a radio show back when I first opened the office, and so a few of you are actually patients because of that radio show. I've since stopped because it's gotten expensive. Um, but she woke up one morning and the radio was going, and what was it? If you're sick and tired of being sick and
Sick and tired of being
tired.
sick and tired.
Yeah. So she came into my office at that point. But Cheryl, she's got almost 40 or 4 decades of nursing experience. Half of that in teaching. Taught pharmacology. Taught a lot of this stuff that we're talking about today. Normal anatomy, physiology, and the nursing stuff as well. So I'm going to let her tell a little bit about her story here. We're going to be passing the microphone back and forth so those people can hear us.
So yeah, as Dr. Jake had said, I kind of floundered a little bit too when I got out of high school. I knew I was going to college. I knew I wanted to study science because that was the only thing that was the least bit interesting. The math and the English and the social studies was boring to me. So I started out just getting a life science biology degree, and it's like, now what do you do with that? I knew I didn't want to teach, and I knew I didn't want to be a nurse. Those were the two things that I knew I did not want to do when I got to college. So I graduated 4 years, had good GPA, and it's like, now what? So I talked to a few of my professors. I talked to some other people at the university, and I decided to go to nursing school. So I did that. Thank goodness at the time there were only 3 accelerated BSN programs in the country. One of them was in Omaha at Creighton. So that's where I went because I wasn't going to spend another 4 years going to college. So I did go to Creighton, got an awesome education there, got my bachelor's degree in nursing, came back to Lincoln. Basically, I've been working in Lincoln since then. I worked acute care for almost 20 years. And then I went into teaching, and like Dr. Jake said, I've been teaching for close to 20 years as well. Again, the two things I did not want to do, I did not want to be a nurse, and I did not want to teach. Those are the two things I absolutely love right now. Right now, I was watching. I'm a big baseball fan, so I fall asleep to Kansas City Royals when they're playing, and then I woke up to the radio, and it was Dr. Jake on the radio saying, if you're sick and tired of being sick and tired, you need to come to this workshop. So I did. And like I said, it's been 6.5 years, probably at least, that I've been here. About a year and a half ago, I can't believe it's been a year and a half since I've been here. Um, Needed a change. Left. I didn't leave teaching. I still teach, but I do it privately. I tutor online nursing students. And so now I'm working here. Again, I do love a lot of teaching. I love the interactions. So all those types of things that I'm doing here. And I wouldn't be here if I didn't love what it's doing to me, as far as getting me out of that pain that I've had for years.
So when I hired Cheryl, because it was a conversation, I was looking at gaps in the office. what we were doing well and what we were struggling to perform as well as I would like. And one of the things was just personalized care. And it's something I've always tried to give you guys. But when I'm adjusting and you guys are asking questions, but there's a line of like 5 or 6 of you waiting for your adjustments so you can get onto your next thing in the day. I don't always have the time to go as deep with you guys as you want. And so I knew that the next step would be somebody like Cheryl to be able to sit down and take things through. So when we're getting into this stuff, we're going to generalize a lot for you guys. Um, but if you need some specific help with where you are and where you're going, she is, maybe not 24/7. I don't want that for you. Um, but absolutely, she's a resource at your disposal to help you take that next step into things. And a cool thing for Cheryl is last year, she got so metabolically healthy that she was able to lose 50 pounds without any drugs or surgeries or anything like that. So yes, it can be done. So yeah, let's get into this now, guys. So yeah, that's us. That's what we're doing. How's everybody doing now? How are Americans doing? Are we, thumbs up, thumbs down, thumbs down. And it's actually been really bad the last couple of years. So I've given a version of this talk pretty much once a year. And this year, I actually took some time to up my knowledge of the recent statistics on it. Like it's always generally about the same. It's like, oh yeah, a third of Americans are obese, and 2/3 of us are overweight. It's worse than that. What do you think the pandemic did to us? When we lock the doors and don't go outside the house, what happens to our weight? Yeah, it goes up, right? And so now the statistics show that 40% of us are obese and as much as 80% of us are overweight. And it's not just the adults that are being hit either. Think about when you guys were kids and you were going to school. Let's start with elementary school. How many fat kids were there in your class? None. None in my class. No fat one. And yeah, maybe there was one or two in yours, and you're like, oh, yep, that's abnormal, but he's got this issue type of thing. And maybe they were diabetic. Maybe they were born with type 1 diabetes, and that's not their fault. It's nothing they're doing wrong. What are the stats today? If we were to go into an elementary school or a middle school or a high school, how many of those kids, what percentage do you guys think? Yeah, not quite that high. You guys are guessing high because it's set. It's a third. It's a third of our kids are obese, and 40%, 50% are overweight. So, my goodness, we are getting things wrong. We are doing it wrong, and unfortunately, it's a systemic issue. Listening to Dr. Lustig talk about all the different issues that go into it, it's a problem from the top down and the bottom up. We are getting it from both ends. The government has it all wrong, and there's corruption in all the wrong places in order to make any changes. So anytime you hear somebody speaking about changing public health from a government perspective, they could be one of 51 different organizations at the top level that has to communicate with those other 50 just to get the information they know out, let alone start to make a change. And then from the bottom up, we just don't know what we don't know, right? Most of us aren't trained in some of the things that we're going to talk about today, which is why I'm so excited that you guys are here, or for those of you that are watching online, while you're watching online, because now we get to give that information to you. I mean, Hosea says that my people perish for lack of knowledge. So, and it's true no matter what faith background you come from. If you don't know, can it still kill you? Yeah, it's the most likely thing to get because you're not looking out for it. So we have to pay attention. We have to know what's going on. Are there any other stats you wanted to share?
No, I was just gonna say, of those 51 different entities that he talked about, none of them communicate with each other. So it's 51 separate entities that all know things, but they don't share any of that information with each other. And as far as, the bottom up, I was talking to a lady yesterday, and her disability check went up by $40, but guess what her food stamps did? They went down by $60. So that's a problem too.
Yeah. So I wanted to share this little graphic with you guys. It's really, when you think about how we got ourselves into this hole, you think about the American lifestyle. What's our number one priority when we're prioritizing things in life? We want things that make us feel good or comfortable or happy. And so we're this guy, right? We're on the slide. It's fun, right? We're making these easy decisions, easy choices. And sometimes it's an easy choice to help with a hard situation, right? You go to the grocery store, the kids are screaming and crying, and they want this thing and they want the other thing. And the easy choice is to what? Yeah, just give in, just give it to them. They'll be happy. They'll be smiling. They'll say, "Thank you, mommy. Thank you, daddy." And you're so excited about it, because yeah, you're the good dad, you're the good mom. But those easy decisions lead to a hard life. But hard decisions, right? The saying, no, son, no, Hanukkah, my daughter's name. We do not eat those things. Those are poison. They only make us sick. Let me make you something good at home. You need to control yourself. You're going to get a consequence. And we're not going to let that consequence there be. So, and then what happens when you make hard decisions continuously? They get easier over time. You start getting to a plateau where, yeah, all the decisions you make feel like to someone that's down here a super hard decision to make or a hard choice to make or a hard thing to do. But you're plateauing. You've done that forever. You've created these habits and you've built a part of your brain called the anterior mid-cingulate cortex, which we're not really going to get into. But it's the part of your brain that when you make hard decisions, hard choices, athletes, professional athletes, college athletes, they have a bigger part of this brain. Obese people have a teeny tiny little part of this brain, and it's directly equivalent to the hard choices you make in your life. And so you can grow. You can grow this. Just know you're not stuck. This is not genetic. Less than 5% of the time is there even a genetic component to this. But yes, it is about the genes because as you do this, it changes your genes one way or the other. You're either going to make it harder on yourself or easier on yourself. So that's getting a lot into it. So being overweight, being obese, it is the new norm. It is basically what we expect when we walk into the grocery store. We don't expect, skinny people anymore because over 75% of us are overweight. And so having little love handles here and there and a little pot belly, that's become the new the dad bod, right? If you followed, the media at all, that's the sexy bod now, right? That's the one that we have on magazines. It's like we've lost this ability to see normal for normal. And we've even normalized it with body positivity imaging. And I'm all one for mental health. Like, absolutely, do not like say to yourself because I'm not thin, I'm not good enough. You are enough to do whatever it is that you need to do, regardless of what your body looks like. But when that body shape indicates metabolic disease happening, is it actually okay to be okay with staying the same? No, it can't be. We can't be okay with this. We have to start taking things further with this. So,
Okay. Oh, so what is metabolism?
saw that coming.
Yeah. So metabolism is how do I burn what I take in, essentially. And it's not calories in, calories out. We know that. Although we've been told that for years that for every calorie you take in, you have to exercise X number of minutes to burn those calories. A lot of our calories, and I don't remember the numbers, but we take in a certain amount of calories just for our body to function. We take in another percentage of calories just to produce enough body heat to stay alive. Then, if we go over that amount, then that's when we need to be exercising. So, if I take in the standard American diet of 2,000 calories per day, which probably most of us don't need 2,000 calories a day, but if you look at the packaging, it's going to say this is what your recommended daily allowance is based on a 2,000 calorie diet. Okay. Um, then we have to exercise, we have to move, we have to do something to burn up the rest of those calories. So, again, we're going to talk more about intermittent fasting or timed eating, maybe more thoughtful when we eat, type of a thing. But metabolism has a lot to do with our endocrine system too. Some of you may have heard the thyroid gland has a lot to do with your metabolism. Um, I think hypothyroidism is becoming an epidemic. Um, and a majority of people over the age of 50, and certainly over the age of 60, have probably been diagnosed with hypothyroidism. And they say, here's your levothyroxine or your Synthroid, take it for the rest of your life. Basically, is what we're hearing. But we've got some information that's going to help with those types of things as well to help boost that metabolism a little bit better.
Yeah, and we also, I previewed this a little bit. It's also aging, right? The better our cells metabolize energy, the slower we age. The worse it metabolizes energy, the faster our cells age. And so we see this with like hair and hair loss. Like, no, and we're going to talk about stress as we go on. I didn't really start losing my hair until I started having kids. And I opened my own and then I added a kid to it by opening up my own chiropractic business as well. And so as that happened, my hair started going gray and then started going back, and that stress, and we'll talk about the effects of stress, it started doing that. But you see some of those things, the wrinkles around the eyes, the wrinkles around the smile lines, those come as part of a specific process that actually makes the cells more brittle and less elastic. And it's going to be a lot of what we talk about today. But how do you know if you have a metabolic disorder at all? Well, first, if you've been diagnosed with it, and really any of these things, and there's more than this, right? And more, and more. These things are a sign that your metabolism is malfunctioning at some level or another. And for some of you, it might be several things on this list. And these are very, very common. You look at, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, heart disease, like that's the number one cause of death in the United States right now. Diabetes, I believe, is around number 3 or number 4 by itself, but diabetic related deaths can jump into, that cardiovascular disease. Cancer is way down here. That's the number 2 cause of death in the United States. All told, this list here, without going into any of the and mores, is responsible for 93% of all deaths inside the United States. And so you think about that. What kind of impact could we have if, as a society, as a culture, we start to make a shift in how we do things, how we think about things, and making metabolic health a priority here? So, you look at the statistics there, 93% of Americans are suffering from some sort of metabolic disorder. And that is incredible. Question.
What I noticed is when I moved here was that I technically had not seen any of these things that didn't have a disease connected to it in my whole life. And during this 10 years, I had become obese.
Mm.
And that scares me. That everything here has so much sugar in it, has so much fat in it, the portions are humongous. And I feel like we sit, we don't move, we don't walk, we just take the car around the corner. We don't bike, we just sit on a bus.
Yeah,
Well,
you're
yeah.
A little bit about what your
Yeah,
background, where
Tove
you're
is from
I'm
Sweden.
from Sweden.
Yeah.
I'm from Sweden, and
Yeah.
we bike, we walk, and we we let the car stand as much as possible. We use public transportation, and it's I biked to school every single day in my whole life, and that was about 10 miles, I think.
Mhm.
And that was not a question about doing that. It was that or walk. So,
Yeah.
and
You
it's
get there
like,
faster with the bike.
yeah, yeah. So it's like I'm scared of how much. My mom even said you have become so Americanized
Yeah.
that you cannot really live in Sweden anymore.
Mm.
And I got very scared when she said that, and that kind of switched my switch back, and I'm like, I need to do something about it.
Yeah. Yeah, you think about it, like, and we'll get into more of this, and actually they do on the podcast with Dr. Huberman and Dr. Lustig. They talk about how the different countries around the world are doing things better than Americans, and they don't get too deep in it. But it's interesting, as much as Sweden gets things right, and they have a far lower obesity and overweight rate than here in the United States. You look at the diabetes rates, they're actually starting to climb, even in Sweden and in some of these countries where they do get it right. And so some of these other countries that haven't seen it like we have in America and don't have everything as capitalized, the capitalism isn't in control of the food industry. They're starting to see some of the ultra processed foods come in and not change the obesity rates, but change the diabetes rates because it's making its way into the food supply. And so even though they have good habits, it's almost undermining what they're doing. So yeah, absolutely. And for those on the camera, basically, she just walked through the difference between Sweden and the United States and just what she's experienced in the last 10 years with going from a fit, healthy individual with good habits to becoming Americanized with this. So it really is a cultural phenomenon here. So, but there's also warning signs of metabolic disease, right? Yeah, you might not have it yet, but or may not be symptomatic with it yet, or you might be subclinical with it yet. But there are some really early warning signs with metabolic disease that can give away that your metabolism is not firing on all cylinders. It's like maybe you just need to change in spark plugs. Maybe you need to do a full tune-up and get everything firing on all cylinders. But these are signs and symptoms that things are not going the way that they should. So being fatigued, having thyroid issues, like we have an epidemic of having a suppressed appetite where you don't feel hungry as much, having cold hands or feet all the time. That's super common in my family. A low libido. We see this seasonally as well. You get through the Christmas season and like everybody, with that it drops PMS, that abnormal cycling or going through that stage of life, and it starts creating more issues hormonally, getting some bloating, anxiety or depression are signs of that, hair loss, brittle nails, insomnia, infertility, irritability, obesity. My son was watching me go through this last night. He's like, what are those last three things? He's 9. He hasn't really gotten into that. And was like, okay, infertility, having trouble having a baby, irritability, just getting angry easily. And then obesity, that was really easy to explain because he knows so many people that are like that. And even since he was young, he'd be like, Dad, why is that person so fat? I'm like, shh, don't say that. But it's true, right? When you grow up in a healthy family, that should be like, why is that one person different, right? But now it's like, it's so many people. And he doesn't say that anymore, not just because I shushed him that one time, but because it's all around him. It's his teachers, it's his, the school, the church, like every adult he interacts with has some level of it to one level or another. Did you want to add anything there? Okay. So what's the answer? So it's lifestyle, if you want to put it into one word, but it's really the 5 essentials. Because you can't just break it down to lifestyle. And lifestyle doesn't give you any direction, right? It's like lifestyle. I need to be healthier. I need to make healthier decisions. We're going to help break that down for you into these 5 different categories. And these are max living. This is all of us. We are doing this across the country. Over the course of the next 2 weeks, 350 offices are doing the same class for this size or even bigger groups. I know some of my friends have rented out churches to bring in 100 to 200 to 300 people so that we can actually make a transformative movement across this. But you break it down, and it starts with number 1, the nervous system. And when does your medical doctor ever talk to you about the health of your nervous system? Ever. I mean, unless you've had like neuropathy or carpal tunnel, like your medical doctor hasn't even examined your nervous system beyond maybe checking your reflexes with that reflex hammer, right? And our nervous system is in control of all health and function. It's so important to have a healthy functioning nervous system. As far metabolic health, for regular health, for cancer survival, we know that the biggest predictor of cancer survival is your heart rate variability. The function of the vagus nerve specifically is more predictive for cancer survival than any other metric we have out there, including the stage of the cancer. You could be stage 5 with great heart rate variability and have a better chance of surviving than if you were stage 1 with awful heart rate variability. That's how important the nervous system is. And what are most of us going to die from? heart disease and cancer. So just those two alone, 2/3 of all deaths, heart rate variability. And they don't even look at it. That's why chiropractic has to be at its core, because that's the first thing we look at. Before we ever talk to you about anything else, we were already thinking, what's your nervous system look like? Where are their stresses? Where are their deficiencies? Where is that going on? And that's why we continue to, every 12 visits, we'll get another nerve scan. And somebody are like, oh, just this scan again. Oh, it's just going to show because I'm stressed. It's like, no, that's important, right? Seeing how well your nervous system is firing is so vitally important there. Nutrition number 2 here, and this is not a hierarchy list, it's essential, right? And that means if you take any one part away, the whole system crumbles, right? You are what you eat, you are what you ate, you are replacing yourself at a cellular level every 5 to 20 years, depending on which cell we're talking about. Your stomach lining, it's every 3 days. Your intestinal lining, it's about every 5 days. Your heart and your lungs, it's every 5 to 8 years. Your brain, your spinal cord, your nerves, those actually don't replace themselves. They can heal, and they can generate new pathways around damaged information, damaged areas, but they're some of the slowest regrowing cells. The bones, it's about 20 years with that. So we have to give it the right nutrients. If you want to heal from a knife wound, what do you need? You need the nutrients that repair the damaged skin, the damaged fat, the damaged blood vessels, the damaged organs. That has to be in there, or else it just puts together a rough matrix of scar tissue from whatever you have that you can get in there. And if you're getting inflammatory, disease building foods, you're going to rebuild yourself in an inflammatory disease state. Mindset. How important has mental health become over the last several years? We're starting to recognize this as a culture. Mental health matters, and we're going to get into this, but stress is one of the biggest killers here. I'll really illustrate this when we get to my dad's story. Fitness and oxygen supply, and really oxygen supply trumps fitness in this regard. Yes, we have a genetic requirement to move, but every cell in your body, the most important nutrient is oxygen. If you don't have oxygen, what grows? Cancer. Yeah, but yeah, no, if you cellularly cancer, but at a global level, right, you die, right? Every cell in your body requires oxygen just to metabolize whatever you're doing, unless you want to grow cancer cells. The last one here is toxicity, because if you start poisoning yourself, even at the smallest level, it's going to start undermining everything else we're trying to do. And so we're going to help you guys through metabolism in each of these 5 categories here. So our mission and vision, yeah, we want to transform healthcare. And so we're starting from the bottom up, because we know that all change starts at the bottom up. When you look at how did we undermine the smoking industry 40, 50, 60 years ago? Did it start at the top? No. We educated the kids, and then the old people that believed the lies died. And not just from cancer and emphysema and all this stuff. They just expired, and then all the people that were left over were the ones that understood the truth. And so this can't just stay in this room. We have to make sure that other people know about this. And so that's our goal. That's why we have 350 offices. That's why we take a Saturday morning when I could be just sleeping in and playing with my kids, to actually go beyond that and to take this information to you. And this is why I want you to keep coming back, because no matter how many times I say it, how much of this are you going to retain? Yeah, maybe 20% if you took notes. And so you need to continually be exposed, just like you go back to church on Sundays. You don't just know it just because you've been exposed to it once, right? So you got to go beyond that. So yeah, and our vision is really to see the pillars of what's considered healthcare in this country just crumble. Because it's not healthcare. What is it? It's sick care. We wait until people get sick, and then we help them manage that until they die. There is no part of medicine right now that is focused on getting people healthy. There's no medication that is a cure for anything that you just don't have to take for the rest of your life. And if you get off of it, the sickness comes right back. As much, and I'm not saying this to undermine nurses or medical doctors, because you really do want to help your patients, but just know that the allopathic model is all about disease management. It's all about treating sick people when they're sick. And the treatment options that you have available from the pharmaceutical industry are not there to actually help you get well. And it's a systemic issue.
I actually saw something that caught me, that like every other commercial, that is like they we're here for you when you get sick. There was this commercial for elderly people healthcare that we are here to help you stay well.
It's like that's so different when
I
you
was
when
like,
you hear like
what?
who's here for when we want to stay well. Well, that's what we want to do is we want to completely crumble the pillars of what's there to make it so that it's all about keeping you well. That you have regular checkups with your well doctor. And so right now that's really what everything in this office is geared toward. Yes, we have a wall of fame, but the cool thing about the wall of fame is that those people graduated from their disease into wellness, right?
It's
Yeah.
a commercial that this African American guy that dances in the office and he stays there and says, I can stay here as long as I want, and they take care of me for every need I want and then some. And it's lovely to see that is a little change of
Yeah.
how we think.
Yeah, no, we need more of that.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So let me jump into my dad's story here real quick. And for those of you that are patients, that have been patients, you've heard different iterations of this story as we go. But for those of you that are new or this is your first class, you probably have no idea who my dad is. I mean, he's my dad. You know, he's an engineer. And when I talk about stress, my dad really, you know, he modeled stress in the worst possible way. Not that he was abusive or neglectful, not out of choice, anyways. My dad worked 120-hour work weeks. Hardest worker I know. He was a controls engineer, worked for the big three, never got a formal education aside from a few certificate classes, but worked his way up. And so he had kind of this inferiority complex where he felt like because he was in charge of a team of engineers that were trained professionally, took all these licensing classes and all this stuff, had, you know, and the undergraduate and the postgraduate degrees, that he needed to work harder just to prove that he could stay with him. And so I mean, think about 120-hour work week. There's 166 hours in any given week. You divide the rest of that up, and if you want to sleep 8 hours a night, that's the only other thing you're doing. There's no drive time, there's no eating time, there's no exercise time, there's no play with the kids time, there's no going to sporting events. My dad, he did cut some of that sleep time off so that he could be with us and could come to stuff. But at the point when my firstborn son was born, he came down from Michigan to meet him. And you can see my dad's a pretty big guy, you know, 5'10", 350 pounds. When he got out of the car, he kind of shuffled up. This is 59 years old, shuffled up to my front door, huffing and puffing, face ashen gray, lips lost all their color, purple, ankles purple. And he's, you know, just like struggling to catch his breath. And I'm thinking he's having a heart attack. I'm like, Dad, are you okay? And he gives me a great big bear hug and says, Jake, I'm great. It's so good to see you. Where's that grandson? Where's Dietrich? You know, that was his priority in that minute. And what it illustrated to me, and I got to spend the next month with him, you know, and really unpack what was going on, is that so much of this stuff comes on so gradually that this mindset of let's wait until we feel something going wrong to do anything about it is the biggest thing that's killing us. It's this mindset of waiting until something's in crisis state. Now, my dad wasn't having a heart attack in that moment. He was in the midst of something called congestive heart failure. And a lot of us know somebody with congestive heart failure, and we often see people just die outright of congestive heart failure. But a lot of people live with it for years and years and treat with medication. My dad wasn't the type of guy that had extra time to go to the medical doctor to even be diagnosed with it. So his chiropractor son had to be like, okay, Dad, we have to step in here and do something. And so I walked him through the 5 essentials, which you can see over there laid out. But it's yeah, his stress was killing him. That was the number one thing. He was constantly on deadline, not getting enough sleep. And when I talk about stress, lack of sleep is probably the biggest stressor most of us deal with because most of us aren't working 120-hour work weeks. But there's toxic relationships, there's all this stuff going on. For him, it was work and not sleeping enough. And he had actually, because of the way his health had gone wrong, had given himself sleep apnea as well. And so, you know, I sit down with him and I go like, okay, so yeah, the work situation has to change. The nervous system we'll get back to in a minute. The nutrition, you know, what was he eating? When he is constantly under stress, and no time to cook food or even come home for food. What's he eating? Takeout, things wrapped in plastic, things from the vending machine. What's that laced with? Chemicals and sugar, basically, right? Because fat will kill you, so you gotta make it taste good. So chemicals and sugar. And so he gained all this weight. And then as far as fitness is concerned, what was he getting? Well, to and from the car, and then from his desk to the bathroom, and maybe to the assembly line floor. Maybe to the bed. Sometimes it was just under his desk, so not much exercise there. And then as far as toxicity is concerned, we talked about it with the food a little bit, but his exposures, he was working in an engineering plant, which was connected to assembly line plants, where he would go in and he would put those control panels in that actually directed the arms to pick up the stuff and weld it into place and take these plastics and mold them and shape them and melt them. And so he's getting all this off gassing from heavy metals and from plastics and all these artificial compounds that were inhibiting his metabolism. He was failing every single category. And so I sat down with my dad and I said, Dad, look, you got to make a change. It's killing you. You're not going to make it to see Dietrich's kindergarten graduation. At this rate, right? No, he could keel over of a heart attack the next step. I said, let's look at your nervous system. Let's see what the control mechanism is doing. And so he let me take an x-ray. The x-ray showed that he had the two biggest things that contribute to congestive heart failure or heart disease in general. One, head forward posture. How many people do you know that don't have head forward posture of some kind, right? And it's simply because he's in front of a computer every single day. And most of us are. Like, that's not a condemnation. It's our society, our culture. We're sedentary, right? We sit and we do this all day. And so it had trained this head forward posture. And the research shows that every inch that your ear goes forward from your shoulders adds 10 pounds of pressure right across here, right where the nerves come out and they go to the heart. And if it goes over 2 inches of head forward posture, so think about the elderly people that you know, which of them don't have this advanced hyperkyphosis here, it doubles their risk of both cardiovascular events, so stroke and heart attack, basically, and doubles their mortality risk overall of dying from anything. And so I said, Dad, we have to fix that first. And so, unfortunately, my dad lives far away, 13 hours. So I wasn't going to be the chiropractor that held his hand and made sure we changed his spine and got it back into place. But I knew somebody that trained the exact same way I did. Another Max Living office about an hour away from him where he was working. And he went there 3 times a week. He did the corrective process, not just getting cracked. It's not just getting cracked. They took an x-ray of his spine. They measured what his neurological fingerprint was, and they adjusted him based off of what he needed to correct. And he did the home exercises. He started changing his lifestyle. And after 2 years, that's the change we saw in my dad. Again, no drugs, no surgeries. And over the course of 2 years, we saved his life. And I don't say that from he didn't have congestive heart failure, so hypothetically, he never had a heart attack, where he hypothetically would have. No, my dad was run over by a tractor, laid on him for 30 minutes, nothing. Thank God for his guardian angel. Nothing broke, nothing ruptured. The stresses that his body were under in that accident were so severe that all the enzymes and hormones that are released when you have a heart attack were released, but he didn't actually have the heart attack. That's how the body is amazing and can heal. He also, like a lot of us, he got COVID these last couple of years, which for a lot of people with congestive heart failure it's just the end. Right? There are a lot of people that had congestive heart failure that they died when they got COVID. My dad got long COVID, and so he's been struggling with it for the last 2 years. But his heart has maintained. He's not had a heart attack. And yeah, there's some scary stuff. His blood pressure still comes up every now and again. He's still paying for some of the choices he made, right? We can't undo all of those things. We still have consequences of our actions. But he has become so much healthier now. And even now that he's actually recovered from long COVID through some of the stuff we teach. Yeah, he's way, way better and doing awesome. And so, only scripture I'm going to have you write down here: where there is no vision, my people perish. Right? He didn't have a vision for his health. He didn't have a vision. He didn't have a plan for what he wanted to do. So on your note sheet, I want to give you guys an opportunity to make a plan here. And so I've got a spot for 30 days. I've got a spot for 1 year from now. I think I've got a spot for 10 years from now. Like, what do you want to be doing 10 years from now? And some of you, that might be a really long time to think about, like 10 years from now. Oh my goodness. Yeah, I guess I want to be doing what I'm doing now, or maybe a little better, or what do you want to be capable of doing? For me, 10 years from now, my kids are starting to go off to college. Like 20 years from now, I'm starting to have little grandbabies that I can, throw the football with, and I think about, that elbow, it's starting to get a little achy after a long week. If I let that go, I don't do anything about that. If I just, ignore that, am I going to be throwing the frisbee or the football with my grandkids 20 years from now? No, it's like, sorry, grandpa can't play. And I'm not going to be an old grandpa either. I want to be a young grandpa. So take a minute, just write down what you're thinking. What do you want to accomplish? Papa, when he comes home, that's what my kids call him, is Papa. He wrestles with them now. 10 years ago, he was not wrestling with them. It took a lot of energy for us to get both of those grandbabies into his arms 10 years ago. But now they get on the floor, they're wrestling around, he's tickling them, they're all laughing and giggling. And it's like, it's such a healing experience to be able to see that happen. So write those down. If you can't think of anything right now, start dwelling on it, start dreaming. What does God have for you? What do you want to be able to accomplish? Because if you don't have it, if you don't have the vision, what's going to happen? Well, yeah, you're going to perish, but how's it going to happen? You're just going to go with the current, go with the flow. What is everybody doing? They're going with the current, they're going with the flow. What's everybody, what's the result of that? Well, they get cancer, they get heart disease, their metabolic health tanks, and that leads to all these negative consequences that none of us want, but we have to have a positive vision in order to accomplish it. So
when you're making your goal,
can
it be like, for right now until you actually get into it, be making some changes that clean out your household to that the level of load on you, and then the next one would be to see, and unless you readjust it down the road, would be to see good effects from those changes. Lower blood pressure or loss of weight.
So there's a little difference here in vision and goal. So, right, I'm kind of using them interchangeably. So I apologize for the confusion. What I want you to do right now is just picture what you want 10 years from now, what you want to be able to accomplish. If you're still around, if God still has you here for some reason, do you want to be in a walker? Probably not. Do you want to have a hip replacement? Probably not. Do you want to be taking 11 different medications for heart disease and high blood pressure and, high cholesterol? Probably not. So what's the inverse of that? What do you see yourself doing? Whether it is like me, like playing with the grandkids, or doing something more fun, or going on cruises with your significant other, or playing, sitting up late, with your grandkids with lots of energy, even just playing cards. Like, what does that require? And then goal setting, right? What are the things I need to do? And we're going to get into some of the things that we need to do as we get into this a little further. So in order to get there, I think we would all agree that we have to know what health is, right? Health is at the core of every single one of these visions. 10 years from now, if you don't have your health, are you going to be able to, go ride a roller coaster at, Six Flags? No, you're not, right? It's one of the biggest things is you're on this different medication. You can't be in this because it has photosensitive lights, or the velocity is going to have you a heart attack. You have to know what health is. And health, by definition, is a state of 100% optimal function. We use the word vitality here for function. 100% function is health. And so what we want to focus on, not the symptoms, right? Not the things that tell us that are wrong, because those things don't typically show up until we're down in this range of the vitality scale. We want things that are going to push us up here. So we need to identify interferences to that expression of function. So there are 3 major categories that we can break everything down to. Yeah, you can put it into those 5 different bins, but it's going to come from thoughts, traumas, and toxins. So thoughts, anything emotional. So things that interfere with your peace, right? You want peace, not having enough sleep, having too much stress, the people in our lives that cause that. Negative self-talk is probably the biggest one, listening to the lies that you tell yourself or you allow other people to tell you. That's huge. Traumas, physical traumas, right? If you get stabbed in the back, you got to heal from that, right? If you fall and break your arm, you got to heal from that. If you get a subluxation in your spine, you got to heal from that. And then toxins, so the chemical stresses. And Cheryl's going to tell a little story here about something that's still ongoing out in Grand Island, right? That's giving our water supply just awful, awful stuff, even down here, because it's upstream from us. But yeah, there's all sorts of chemical things that are going to interfere with that. And so when we're talking about this, we have to go with what system controls all function. Well, I said this already, the central nervous system. For your heart to beat, for your lungs to breathe, for a cut on your leg to heal, a signal has to run from the brain down the spinal cord and out the nerves to every organ, cell, and tissue in your body. It doesn't happen any other way. And we know that because if we sever the brain stem, all function stops. And it doesn't matter what else you do. We have to make sure that connection is restored. We cut all the nerves going to the heart. Again, the heart's not going to function. It's going to stop. We cut all the nerves going to the digestive system. Doesn't matter how much keto food we eat, how much low sugar food we eat, how much fat-free food we eat, how much real food we eat. No, because all of a sudden this is separated from this and we can no longer digest and assimilate that food into this loving, living, thinking clay. And so we need to make sure that that's protected. And so we have something called a spine, right? It's this living shield that surrounds and protects the spinal cord and all the nerves coming out of it. Now it has a normal position. It should be straight up and down from the front, which this guy is not because I've had him for about 10 years now. And then from the side, it's supposed to have these 3 45-degree curves. When it's in that position, your nervous system is perfectly protected. Anyone see the meme that shows the inside of a turtle shell without the turtle inside it? No. No, it's not just a shell. The whole turtle is the shell. The shell is the turtle. And it's the same thing with your spinal column. It's not just bones surrounding the central nervous system. It is the central nervous system. We shouldn't be isolating the bone from the spinal cord or the nerve roots, because anything that gets it stuck out of position or irritates it or inflames it is going to cause an interference in those nerves. So whether that's a bulging disc, right? That's an extreme example. Some of you guys have had those before, or it's just a simple subluxation where things slide out of position slightly. All it takes to disrupt that nerve supply is less than the weight of a dime. The weight of a dime, if put on that nerve root, if I put it on your hand, you're not feeling that. But if you leave that for 5 minutes on a nerve root, it disrupts the nerve supply going through that nerve by 60%. If that gets stuck out of position, right? You wake up with a stiff neck in the morning. Sometimes I do, right? I get kids crawl into bed with me occasionally. I wake up, I've been sleeping on my side. Oh, yep, that's stiff. Got to loosen that up a little bit. If that doesn't come unstuck, it sends a stress response to the vestibular cortex. The vestibular cortex is what determines where things are in space. That's part of your brain. It's a pretty important part of your brain. If that doesn't get unlocked, start sending a stress response up to your prefrontal cortex, which is basically you, the part of you that is your personality and how you process thoughts and emotions. And if that doesn't get unlocked, what happens is stress response hits your whole body. And so now we've got a stress response here, which is going to initiate a chemical cascade, which is going to lead to disease, not just to the nerves that go to the heart or to the lungs. Here, let me give you an example from the literature. Dr. Robert Lustig, when he was on this Dr. Huberman podcast, Huberman Labs, he was talking about this mouse study that they have. And they've been able to grow these mice that are insulin resistant in just their kidneys. Everywhere else in their body, they are not insulin resistant. They are healthy. They are not what you would consider diabetic mice, but their kidneys cannot process sugar and cannot process the proteins, the inflammatory proteins. So we'll get into this as we get into more nutrition stuff. But what they found is that these mice, if fed a normal diet, would die of kidney disease. Even though the blood sugar was being taken up normally everywhere else in their body. So think about this. If this nerve that goes to the kidneys is pinched, even if it doesn't hit the pain sensors, and you never feel back pain, or you might just feel a little back stiffness, if that's pinched off going to the kidneys, is insulin going to know what to do in the right moments if it's disconnected from the brain? Not at 100%. And disease isn't an all or nothing thing, is it? It's a gradient of disease. And so it doesn't start off as, oh, you have diabetic neuropathy. All these mice died of it. Or not neuropathy, but I'm saying the wrong word. Nephropathy, yes. Nephropathy. Get into the right terminology there. So, yeah, they all died from it. And in their case, it was a genetic thing that was inbred to them to see what the mechanism of it would be. Obviously, we're not going to repeat this in, humans. This is not going to be a human study, because that, when we see everything die in animals, it's like, well, let's just stay away from that. But help us understand how this works. So when we're talking about subluxation, we're talking about that physical interference, but it can also be a chemical interference depending on the stress response of the body, but it can also be an emotional interference depending on how the stresses are hitting us as well. But the spine and the nervous system working together to control and coordinate this. And this is how some of the people on our wall end up there without changing their diet or changing their exercise or changing their toxic exposures or changing the stress in their life. When we adjust the spine and we make the spine healthier, the whole system gets healthier. And those disease processes start to go away. Now, for some of you, you've been dealing with the same issue for years. We've just gotten you slowly better, slowly better, slowly better, or maybe kept you from being as bad as you were when you started. And yes, that was part of it. You only added the chiropractic side of things, and you didn't add the nutrition, or you didn't add the fitness, or you didn't add the toxicity. And you're not able to fully recover like you wanted or expected or hoped for when you started at the office. It's like, what do I need to do? Well, it's add in the other essentials, right? It's remove the causes of the interference as well. So what are some warning signs? Well, list a symptom. Let's go back to the nerve chart, right? If we pinch the nerves that are at the top, around the brainstem, can that cause headaches? Yeah, absolutely. But what else can it interfere with? Your balance, your hearing. The first adjustment was a deaf janitor who had lost his hearing. When he got adjusted, it came back. It's pretty cool. It can interfere with your vision. It can make you a little wobbly. We can start seeing the sinus pressure increase over there. We come down the spine. You can get neck pain with a pinched nerve to your neck, but that also goes out to the thyroid. We've had multiple patients start getting thyroid function back as we've adjusted their spine, even without changing their diet or exercise. We go down to the upper back, you can get tightness between the shoulders. That's like something all of us deal with, right? Yeah. But the same nerves that go out to the muscles of the upper back also go out to the heart, they go to the lungs, they go to the breast tissue. And so we need to make sure that that's staying healthy and functioning well. We go down here to the kind of the mid back, that kind of most arched out portion of the back there. You can get that type, but you can also have issues in the liver. You can have issues in the pancreas. You can have issues in the spleen. You can have issues in the kidneys, or affecting your adrenal glands, and artificially keep your stress high, or start to get some cortisol issues elsewhere in your body. We go down and you can get a spastic muscle in your low back, spastic back. I've had that before, but yeah, you can get the same ones in the smooth muscles of your intestines and have a spastic colon and have it go one way or the other. You're either going too much or you're going too little. And so we need to make sure that we're addressing the nervous system here, because yeah, it might cause sciatica when you pinch a nerve, the sciatic nerve at its root, but it might not. It might be causing that in your kidneys. It might be causing that in your liver. It might be causing that in your stomach or in your small intestines. And so we need to be making sure that that nervous system stays healthy. And so how do you make sure it's healthy? Well, there's only one real way to test the health of the nervous system, and it's to actually measure the electrical activity. It's the main way it communicates. And so the first thing that we do in every single interaction with you guys, we take that nerve scan, all right? And we see these reds, or we see these pinks, or we see these yellows, and we're like, okay, that's interference away from the normal function of your central nervous system. But what's our goal? Our goal is to turn it to that. Get it green, get it balanced, get it equal. And will it happen after one adjustment? Usually not, because the amount of force it would take to take your spine from where it is off to the side to where it needs to be, it's probably going to create some pretty significant symptoms that you're not going to like me very much for. And I've had that happen before. I had a young lady with debilitating migraines, and I knew I could help her. I didn't know how she would respond to the adjustment, but I knew I had to give her a good one. But she was so sensitive to the adjustment that she had more migraine right after the adjustment than she had before. And so now I've learned to tell these people, like, no, taking pressure off of a subluxated segment can often feel like taking a knife out of a wound. It's necessary for you to heal from that knife wound, just like it's necessary to take the pressure off of the nerve with the adjustment, but it's not always going to feel good. Most of the time it does, right? Most of you guys feel better after your adjustments, but occasionally there are some sore spots. There are some things that kick up for us. And migraine patients in particular, because of the sensitivity to the neurology, that needs to happen. It needs to come off, but sometimes we have to do it a little bit more gently the first couple of times. But then from there, we have to take x-rays because we don't know what's causing that, right? Because it could be emotional stress, could be chemical stress, could be physical stress. The x-rays show how much of it is a physical misalignment of the spine. So I talked about my dad's x-rays. These are Mary's. Mary had a huge metabolic problem, over 100 pounds overweight when we first saw her, severe neck pain. Your neck is supposed to look like a smooth 45-degree curve like that. Hers was buckled right here, right where the nerves exit out and go to the thyroid. Guess what Mary was on as far as medication? Levothyroxine and Synthroid, because you got to get the name brand in there too, right? Yeah. Double up, make sure it hits. She'd been on it for 10 years, had 10 years of debilitating neck pain. After 3 months of corrective chiropractic care, we took her spine back to a 33-degree curve from reversed. Pain dropped. Did the thyroid turn back on immediately? It was getting more signal though, wasn't it? And so over the course of the next 2 years, as we continued to maintain her spine and she continued to make changes to her lifestyle, guess what happened to her thyroid? It turned on enough that she didn't have to take the medication anymore. Not because I said not to, but because her blood levels returned to the point where they needed to be. And that's something that, you know, we have to coordinate with your doctor to make sure that you're in a healthy place. But I love having Cheryl on hand for, because it's like, hey, that's a symptom of you having too much of this thing in your bloodstream. So she recognizes that really fast. Oh, always. If something dies dead, like disconnected from the nerve supply, disconnected from the blood flow, disconnected from everything, it's just dead tissue. It's like if you ever get a root canal, right? What do you do to that tooth? It's killed. It's dead. Is that tooth ever going to be alive again? No. It's dead. You know, the best case scenario is you get an implant and there's something there that you don't have to recrown every 10 years or so. So yeah, there are scenarios where the tissue is just dead and you've had like radiated thyroid where it just killed all the thyroid cells, even down to the stem cell level, and it doesn't come back on. So yes, there is a point of no return. Just like for us, there's a point of no return. You know, short of Jesus Christ coming back and laying his hands on you and saying, get up and, you know, get up from your grave and take your, you know, grave clothes with you. You know, that's the only way that can happen. So no, chiropractic isn't a panacea cure-all for anything, but the nerve system is essential for life. And if you cut that off, we need to restore it as best we can. And so the first step, so for those of you that are guests today, if you want an exam, is that paperwork, right? We have to schedule a time to get that in. So at the bottom of that page are available appointment times during this week. So I just need you to circle the available appointment times on there. The first visit costs $49. And so what's included in the first visit? You get the consultation, you get the exam, you get a nerve scan and x-rays. Then we send you home. All right? Didn't even do anything to you yet. We're finding out what's wrong, what's interfering with that nervous system. From there, second visit, cost of it's included in the first visit. So not an additional $49 covered in the first one. We do your first adjustment. For me, that's part of the exam. I want to see how you respond. I want to see what needs to be done. And then we're going to retest. And we're going to retest with a new x-ray to see how quickly your spine responds to that adjustment. Third visit, that's also included in the cost of the first visit. It's a full report of findings and recommendations for you to see exactly what's going on with your spine, to be able to go through all the steps necessary to get the correction that you need, and then be able to start walking through that. And that's where we start making decisions and moving forward with care. So if you're going to come in for that, go ahead and fill out that form I gave you guys. And at the break, we're going to go ahead and get you guys scheduled for that first visit. So not to completely switch directions because we're still talking about interference, but we're going to step away from the spine for a minute and we're going to start talking about food right before we start eating food, right? So here, let me hand this off because I've been talking for a while.
Okay, so obviously lots of interferences in our foods. Food, even if it is farm raised and you grow it yourself, it's still not as good as it was 50 years ago because our soil's not as good as it was 50 years ago. Big difference. Um, and what do we put on the food? What a conventionally raised food that comes with pesticides, it comes with fertilizers, it comes with you name it, is on it. So lots of problems with chemical interference. Okay. So as this says, 73% of all the foods found in the grocery store are those ultra processed junk. It has so much stuff in it. And just again, shop, and I think we'll get to that. How to shop the grocery store. Some of the best ideas, best ways to do that. So, fad diets, 95% of all fad diets fail. And I'll talk a little bit about leptin and ghrelin, a couple hormones that your body produces to help with appetite, with hunger, those types of things. And the best way to get the maximum use out of your normal hormones are to avoid fad diets, avoid the yo-yo diets, because they don't work. We know that they don't work, and people will lose weight and then you stop the diet, and what do? You go back to what you were eating, and then your weight gain comes back, and it might even double what you lost. Okay, big issues there. Okay, so fats, we need healthy fats. And when we talk about, and I've talked to a lot of you about the core plan, about the advanced plan diets, one of the first things that we look at is the fats. Um, we need omega-3 fatty acids. That's our anti-inflammatory fats. Our body requires omega-3s to function. And we don't make hormones. We don't make any of the chemicals in our body without omega-3 fatty acids. Omega-6s and omega-9s are the evil ones. They're the inflammatory fats. So again, we want to avoid those as much as we can. Oh, you switched it. I was going to say.
You're talking about yours and villains.
I didn't think I switched it. So anyway, we should be in a 1-to-1 ratio of omega-3s to omega-6s, and we don't find that in conventional foods. We find, I think, conventional beef is like a 17-to-1, 17 parts of omega-6s to 1 omega-3. So we do need to look at that. Other healthy fats, good options in addition to the grass-fed, grass-finished beef. We're going to look at coconut oil, olive oil, avocado. Those are going to be your best options for healthy fats. Seafood, is that next? Nope. Okay, so seafood. Get wild caught seafood, and it's better off if it's wild caught in the Pacific because it's cold water. And in the Atlantic, they farm, even though it's in the wild, in the water, they seed and put particular types of foods in the water to attract the fish. So they're not living off the wild, those types of fish that we're eating. Chicken, poultry, again, we want that free range because the chicken need to eat what the chickens need to eat. They don't need to eat the corn because what's been put on the corn, pesticides, fertilizers, et cetera, et cetera. So again, weight loss, fats. We talked about some of those myths. Calorie in is not a calorie out. Restricting calories. But you have to watch what your calorie is. A calorie you can get, and I think they were talking in this podcast, a porterhouse steak versus Oreos. Well, they're both going to be the same amount of calories, but there's a whole lot more nutrition in that porterhouse steak than what you're ever going to get in that Oreo. Okay, so huge, huge difference.
Yeah. No, it's really interesting. So many different thoughts were running through my mind, and I don't want to steal your thunder on any of this at all because it's so huge. But like you think about that porterhouse steak, and they actually broke down the amount of calories that were in it. And so let's say it's just an equal amount of calories in the amount of Oreos you're eating and the porterhouse steak, and we'll say 1,000. You say 1,000 calories of the porterhouse steak. How much of that actually is used by your body for you? Like, well, there's a huge thermic effect in porterhouse steak. And so he was saying something around 25% of that, those calories are just lost. You expend the calories in consuming the porterhouse steak. Whereas with the Oreos, you get all of those. Like the thermic effect of carbohydrates is super, super small, especially when it's an ultra processed Oreo because it's removed from its fiber. And so we need to make sure that we're addressing that. So fats are not created equal. And so you look at the fat from a porterhouse steak, let's say it's a corn-fed porterhouse steak versus a grass-fed porterhouse steak. First off, the grass-fed porterhouse steak, it is going to be rich in omega-3s. It's going to have all those omega-3s that you want. And when you consume an omega-3, your body needs omega-3 so much it doesn't even use that fat for calories. So you drink omega-3s like straight from the bottle, that is not adding to your caloric load because it goes and it puts that in places that it needs that. Whereas if you have corn-fed steak, it turns that into organic acids, I believe was what they were calling them in the interview. And the organic acids, your body, or the branched chain organic acids, so BCAAs, which is what bodybuilders use to get bigger muscles often. If your muscles aren't asking for those, your body actually takes those and turns them into fat inside your liver, which is the worst possible place for you to get that. And it also creates an insulin effect that you only ever see with sugar. And so it's very, very important that we get that there. So I was looking in the notes, and I don't want to skip too far ahead here, but there's 5 key things here, and I want you to help. I want to help you fill in these blanks here. When we're talking about food and we're talking about nutrition, and we're going to get to this in a second when we're talking about hormones when I hand it back to Cheryl. But the 5 things that we need to do, and these are going to be layered throughout the rest of this talk, is number 1, we need to fix the fats. Right? We just talked about fat. Could go for another hour on fat. We might come back to fat, but you need to fix the fats. We need to get the right kinds of fats. And so the naturally occurring fats are the main ones that you want to go. If it's coming from a bottle, odds are good that the goods are odd, right? And so why is that? Well, first off, most of the oils on the shelf are really bad for you in general. Just because they've been processed, they're already denatured. However, if you're getting a real food that has a fat content in it, it's already primed for you to be able to eat well. Just like a grass-fed steak, that's perfect for you. Your body knows exactly what to do with that. But if you take that, you cook it down, and it's in the pan, and you've cooked it at 450 degrees in the oven, and that's just sitting on the bottom of the pan. If then you go back and you reheat that, which is just smallest hint of what these food companies are doing in order to get fats into a bottle, that's already denatured. If that fat starts smoking, it's denatured. And so you're creating trans fats, and trans fats your body also doesn't use for energy, but instead of putting it someplace to use because of its anti-inflammatory properties, your body then again stores it as fat in the liver that cannot be broken down and cannot be cleaned out. So if you let olive oil, which is a healthy oil, one of the few exceptions to the rule I just stated, if you let olive oil smoke, you've created a trans fat, even though it's one of the healthiest fats out there. And so, yeah, let's say you do like I did the other night and you start making popcorn. I got the heat on medium low so things don't get too hot, but I step away from the stove for a minute to go deal with one thing with the kids, and that one thing turns into an hour long, and I come back. What's happening to the oil in the pot? It's smoked. What should I do with that oil? Yeah, because the $20, or let's just say it's super expensive olive oil. I didn't spend $20 on that much olive oil, but the $20 that I spent on that olive oil is not worth the negative health ramifications of putting that in my body. It isn't, because you cannot get rid of the trans fats from your system that you just created. And when you think about that, you have to think about it with every processed seed oil. If it's a seed oil, just don't. You know, if it says sunflower seed, safflower oil, it says canola oil, what's canola come from? Rapeseed. Yeah, think about the marketing job they'd have to do to make rapeseed marketable for us. But they did. They changed the name. They said it's Canadian oil low acid, and it's super denatured and super bad for you. Already highly inflammatory, even before it hits the pot. You go to the movie theater. What are they putting in there? What's the main oil? What's the main oil? It's not even a food product. It's not even soybean. It'd be better if it was soybean. Good guess. I'll get to soybean in a second. Cottonseed oil. Is cotton a food product? No. And so, does the FDA regulate the pesticides that are sprayed on cotton? No. And so now you're getting at even more inflammatory, more denatured oil that wasn't intended for human consumption in the first place. And so we have to really look at this. So what are the good oils? The ones that are naturally occurring in foods. Butter is great because it doesn't have to be extracted, right? You just pull the cream off the top and shake it up, right? Now you've got butter, you know, especially if you're not lactose intolerant or sensitive or anything. You know, what about, you know, go beyond that. We go to olives. Are olives a good source of fat? Yeah, come on in. Yeah, olives are a great source of fat. Olive oil, another good source of fat, but only if it's extracted the right way. So extra virgin, unrefined olive oil. Coconuts, great source of healthy fat. But again, extra virgin, unrefined coconut oil, way better. Are there denatured olive oils? Are there denatured coconut oils? Absolutely. And they're going to be the cheap ones that you're going to want to buy because it saves you a few dollars in the grocery store, and you're going to pay for it with your healthcare bill. And so I'm not saying you have to buy the most expensive brand, right? I'm saying you have to buy the best quality, and you have to know how to look for those qualities. So extra virgin, unrefined when you're looking at oils. Question? Yes. Rapeseed or grapeseed? Rape, R-A-P-E? Yeah, that's canola. So that's, yeah, a super tiny seed, just like a grapeseed would be, but even smaller. And then because it's become so industrialized and it's been put in everything. There was a time when I remember people were saying, this is the healthy oil that you guys should eat. You know, it's now in all our food products. You look at a bag of potato chips, that's the main oil that they put in there, especially if it's a cheap brand of potato chips. So yeah, rapeseed is one of the worst because it has been so heavily commercialized. But even just extracting, let's go to grapeseed because I don't like saying the word rape anymore. Let's say grapeseed, just to get that out of the seed and the amount of content. How much oil are you eating when you eat a grape with the seeds in it? How much? Not much. So the amount of extraction that's required to break down that seed and pull the oil out, you know, that is often done with chemical emulsifiers that are highly toxic anyways, plus temperature, and then you want to put that much in a bottle that's this big. That's not going to be good for you. It's going to be inflammatory. It's already going to be denatured. And then your body, because you don't have any other oils in it, because you're like, oh, canola oil is great because, you know, all the food companies use it in all their foods. That's the only oil I'm getting. Now, all the fat in my body, which is 99.9% of every cell's outer membrane, is being replaced by canola, or being replaced by grapeseed, or being replaced by safflower and sunflower. And so the main fats that you should be eating are the ones that are just naturally occurring. You should be getting olives. You should be getting coconuts. You should be getting, you know, salmon. Seafood's huge. You're getting those omega-3s in there so your body can use them to fill in the gaps in places where it is already weak from some of the mistakes that you've made in other places. I hear a question.
So they have that grapeseed extract that's good for you.
Mhm.
That would be different.
Yeah,
How is the
so
process?
and extract is fine, right? If you pull something out of it, yeah, as opposed to taking something that's not inherently fatty and making it the main thing is the fat content of something. So when you're thinking about what's a healthy fat and what's an unhealthy fat, look at the whole food that it's coming from and say, this corn, how much fat is here? Should I be eating corn oil? This soybean, is this inherently fatty? Should I be getting this soybean oil? This vegetable in general, is this a healthy? In olives, that's, yes, it's true. You should be getting olives, but that's technically a fruit. Coconuts, again, technically a fruit. And so that's the same thing we see with avocados. Avocados, technically a fruit. So great sources of healthy fats. So we want that. So we're about to break for lunch. I don't want to get too far ahead of myself, but I wanted to give you guys a practical example. So this is the salad we got you guys. Organic, right? Organic Caesar salad. I'm getting you guys the good stuff from Costco. All right, and you guys are probably getting hungry now because we're going on 12:30. I went to the back. They include this packet. It's a Caesar salad kit, right? So they even organic salad dressing. Oh, yay! No, healthy because it's organic, right? Well, how do we read the label? We go back. Caesar dressing. First ingredient is the thing that's in there the most. Organic soybean oil. Again, soybeans not very high in naturally occurring fats, and soybeans in general are very estrogenic, meaning, as we get to later, obesogen. Your body makes you fat when you consume things from this product. And so I was like, nope, we are not getting this. So that is going in the trash, right? With the rest of the sugar over there. And then, I looked at it because, they didn't break it down in the nutrition facts label, how much sugar is in there. But when it says less than 2% of, and then the second ingredient is organic cane sugar. Well, the total sugars, it says 0 sugars added on there, which is a trick that the food industry plays. The food industry, their main priority is selling you food. They are not your friend. They are not trying to help you on the front side of this package. They're trying to hide things on the back side of this package. They're allowed to say when it's less than half a gram in a serving that it has 0. That they are allowed to say that. And so this says it has 7 servings per container, which I'm guessing, if I'm eating this for a meal, I'm having half of this. I'm going to be getting that. And so you have to look at, and we have videos up here in the office that describe this. You have to look at total carbohydrates minus the dietary fiber, right? And we're going to get into this with the hormones here. So let me let you do that.
Okay, so I talked a little bit about ghrelin and leptin, and I made notes just so I wouldn't get confused, but ghrelin is considered the hunger hormone, and it is primarily produced by your stomach, and it's going to send out signals to your brain that I'm hungry, I need to eat. It's a very short-acting, short-term type of hormone. And it also plays a role in it helps your pituitary gland to release growth hormone. It also helps in the release of insulins. So ghrelin is that immediate release. I'm hungry. I need to eat something. Okay, that the little gremlins in your stomach, if you want to put it that way. Again, to keep your ghrelin levels healthy, it says avoid fad diets, yo-yo diets, which of course we've said. You need to eat your lean proteins, limit your processed foods, sleep, hydration, and control stress. Kind of sounds like the 5 essentials, right? To kind of keep that going. Leptin, on the other hand, decreases your appetite. Leptin is your long-term weight control ingredient or hormone. Your fat cells actually produce the leptin in your body, and they let you know when your brain has enough energy stored and you don't need to eat anymore. Okay. It helps that satiety or that satisfaction when I'm full or 2/3 full, basically. that's when the leptin kicks in and says, I don't need to eat anymore. Do we always listen to it? No. We've found, or scientists have found, that there is actually a thing called leptin resistance, that our body no longer recognizes the signal that the leptin's giving us. And we continue to eat and we continue to eat, and we don't get that sensation of being full anymore, because we're not responding to the leptin. It's not being taken up by the cells like it should be. It says there are a lot of other processes involved. It's not just the leptin resistance, but that's one of the major hormones that we need to think about as being suppressed. So, ways to actually help increase leptin, it says as body fat decreases, leptin levels decrease, which then signals your body that it thinks it's starving. So again, that's part of that. Your body is trying to preserve. I think part of this podcast was talking about the Inuit population, um, and they don't get the vegetables, the fruits, because they're living in the tundra. They don't have ground to grow things in, so they eat mostly fatty animals, and they may pack on the pounds during the winter to get them through, but then they lose that weight in the summer months, and those are things that we're not doing because, again, we've interfered with a lot of the toxins, a lot of the chemicals that we've been exposed to has really kind of messed up that balance between the leptin and the ghrelin, and they're not functioning like they should be.
I want to say before we break for lunch here, real quick, that the villain in this story is really insulin. And we could go just like they did in the podcast about 3 hours just talking about how bad insulin is for you. And we think about insulin as a good thing, right? Especially with diabetics. Like, we got to get that insulin in to control that blood sugar because that blood sugar is really bad for you. Well, yes, it's bad, but also high insulin is also really bad for you, because what insulin does is it takes the blood sugar and it allows it to be transported into cells. And when you're relying on sugar, it actually inhibits certain parts of the glycolysis cycle into making energy when you're just relying on sugar. And when you're just relying on non-organic or non-naturally raised protein, so things that are fed, corn in particular, you're also creating fats, and those fats are stored in the liver, and the liver is the most toxic place for fat to go. It only takes a half a pound of liver fat for it to create metabolic disease, create and contribute to metabolic disease. And so, when we say, fix your fats, perfect your proteins, curb your carbohydrates, trash your toxins, and avoid your allergens and sensitivity, those 5 things that are at the bottom of that sheet, the priority has to be perfecting the proteins and curbing the carbs, but it also has to be, fixing the fats. But you can't ignore the toxins, as we'll get into later, and you can't avoid the allergens and food sensitivities as well. So it all works together. You really have to do all of them. If you want a good first step, I'd say the first step is, perfecting the proteins. Yes, we need to cut the carbohydrates out, but just the way that bad proteins work to, spiking your insulin levels, contributing to reduced insulin sensitivity, leads to more of these problems than maybe anything else other than pure fructose, which can only be created in the lab, but is in all of our processed foods. It's the reason why you can't eat just one, right? Potato chip or whatever. So we were going to break a little bit later, but it's already after 12:30, which is a little longer than I wanted to go before lunch anyways. So here's what we're going to do. First off, if you're a guest and you want an appointment, Cheryl's going to meet you at the front desk, and she's going to make sure you get the preferred appointment time to come into the office and have your nervous system checked. Then get in line, grab some food. Guests, we love you. We appreciate you coming on out. If you are a female, I believe that you should eat first. So you are going to get in line first. And so we're going to form a line right around the counter over there. Serve yourself. There's plates. There's some tortilla chips, good tortilla chips with good fats and good ingredients in them that aren't going to spike your blood sugar or your blood insulin. And then there's the Caesar salad. I already pre-seasoned it with the cheese and the spices for Caesar salad. However, there is no Caesar dressing because they were sold out this morning when I realized I had forgotten to pick it up. And Hy-Vee only had ranch and Green Goddess. So you guys get ranch and Green Goddess Caesar salad. I also left the croutons off because bread works like sugar in the body. If you want the croutons, dig through the sugar pile. I just threw them in there because that's how they work. They're, bread is sugar. Gentlemen, once you see the line starting to dip down, feel free to jump in line as well. Before we go, let me bless the lunch, and then we can go ahead for it. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for this day. Thank you for the opportunity to come and to learn and to have our minds renewed. We thank you for this food and the opportunity to break bread together. And we just ask continued blessing on everything that we do here, that our hearts and minds and bodies would be filled and blessed from what we're experiencing this morning. We pray these things in Jesus' name. Amen. Yep. Amen. Get your food.
Oh, James, can you get this? Yeah. You guys probably hungry too. I'm going to. I'm going to. Oh, okay.
Doing fine. Yourself?
Very fine. Yeah, it's a little too much. Yeah. Blowing all over the top. Okay.
I'm glad you made it. I'm doing great. Yeah, we got so much more about it. Like, I don't know if I'm gonna fit in 3 hours. No, it looks like there's some left, and then I can throw some new stuff in it. That one is
We'll check it.
Yeah.
No, I didn't.
Yeah. The vinegar.
Yeah.
Like my college changed. Stuff your cake.
Yeah. Yeah, gentlemen, if you'd like to join the line. Work schedule. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, I've got a whole big jug of it, thank you.
Okay. Yeah. You're welcome. Glad you guys could come today.
Where do you get these ones?
The chips, I bought them from Costco.
Oh, they
It's
have
the,
these ones that
the
come
best
with it?
price on the CFA chips is at Costco.
Oh, nice, I don't think it's.
Yeah, they're not corn chips, but they're good enough,
No, it's
close
like
enough.
kind of substitute.
Yeah, a good sideways.
They have that ID in their health market.
Oh, they do,
They have a lot,
honey, really?
they have a lot of different varieties that they offer. in
Oh,
their
I
chips.
don't.
Plus they have them in potato chips, and they season them, so. They
Oh,
offer.
yeah, this is a great substitute, they taste good. We make a lot of like chimichurri and salsa and homemade at home and stuff, and it's like, the delivery system is either you put it on meat, or maybe eggs, or, but you just really want chips, you know?
I know,
And so it's good to,
they don't put a lot of junk in, they use avocado oil, so you don't have to worry about all the
Yeah.
bad seed oil.
yeah.
They don't do any of that
Oh,
at
they're
all.
good.
They even have a corn chip and don't put anything bad in it.
Mm.
So they are, but you know, I was doing Boulder, and when I was learning about seed oils, Boulder and all of those brands, they're putting in the seed oil and they're telling themselves healthy.
Yeah.
And I'm like, no. I mean, even the crackers, I do gluten free. You have to watch them too. So I had to find one that had olive oil in it
And then
as a base for crackers.
Yeah,
I could have to shake it. That if I wanted a cracker. I just, there's just not a lot. But Siete does all of theirs with olive or avocado.
Oh, yeah, they're good.
They're really good brands. I enjoy it.
So I just did a sentence, fill out, so it was cut down. You gotta give me one here, like that.
I was actually just about to do that. Actually, it's on the back of your nose.
It is? Ah. The coffee. It's really, really good.
It's really fun.
Yeah, it's real coffee, and you put other things in it. You put this in the sauce or-
I don't think.
So, yeah, it's.
Oh, yeah. So I'll just highlight it. So yeah, if anybody's wondering about the coffee, how I made that, it's just regular coffee. And I make sure it's organic because I don't want any of the pesticides on there. I tend to do a decaf because I've become so sensitive to caffeine lately. But brew your coffee, and then the protein that's in the challenge, I'll put a scoop of that in the blender with a tablespoon of coconut oil. And then you don't even have to add sweetener. I put a little monk fruit in there for those of you with a sweet tooth this morning. And then I blend that until it looks creamy and then serve it. Yeah, it's really good. It's way better than a $5 Starbucks drink.
I agree.
Yes, absolutely.
My niece took a matcha. Matcha tea. She likes coffee, but she knew I like coffee. And then she brought over. She used my honey and cinnamon.
Mm-hmm.
But she brought over ginger and turmeric, and we blended it all together. It was really good.
Yeah, you can do the same thing with the green tea, or just get all the ingredients in there.
But she was talking about all the different things you can put in there to add a little flavor to it, too, a little fruity flavor to it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you can do so. One of the things I did today to help with the extra monk fruit I put in there is I added some cinnamon to the coffee. You might have tasted a little bit of that in there, and that helps to lower the effect of the sugar as it hits your system. So helps the insulin out.
Water? Oh, no. Move the chair.
How are we doing? Everybody got their food? Everybody except us? Yeah. All right. I'm going to talk for a minute, Cheryl, so if you need to grab a plate. I'm going to dive into time-restricted feeding. So go ahead and grab your seats. Feel free to keep eating. If you need a little bit more, feel free to jump over there. But yeah, time-restricted feeding. Fasting has gotten kind of a good name and a bad name, depending on who you are. You may have been told that fasting is not right for you because of XYZ condition. But let me tell you, there is no person in this room that can't benefit from some level of time-restricted feeding. And it really comes down to our genes. Genetically, we come from people that lived in times of feast or famine. You just look at, like most of us in this room, with a couple exceptions, have some ancestry in Europe, right? You can tell that just from the tone of our skin. And you think about like the Black Death, the bubonic plague. Some of what set that up was a severe time of famine because there was more people than there was food, and just with the way the feudalism was set up, there were a lot of starving people. And then on top of that, you release this bacteria, rat-borne bacteria that gets into the food supply and starts, sharing that with people. We get this severe famine that coincides with the Black Death, and then all of a sudden these people die. Just because it was a big historical event doesn't mean that there weren't other smaller ones that weren't big historical events. I mean, even in the United States of America, and was it the 1930s, we had the Great Depression that coincided with the Dust Bowl. That was most of the prairie states in the United States. So a lot of our farmland was depleted, and so a lot of us were going through a time of famine as well. And we see that genetically. We see that people who lived through the Great Depression that didn't have access to as much food, that even 3 generations later, that their growth is stunted. And it's just genetically your body is predisposing you to that. And so we are designed to have times to be able to survive through times of famine. It's not necessarily that famine is good for us, but our hormones are set up to be able to utilize that to our benefit. Now, for most of us, that shouldn't go longer than like 48 hours. Like if you're going to limit your time, your restricted feeding, don't ever go longer than 48 hours. You're starting to lose some benefit there. After 48 hours, you start to eat into your muscle mass and you start to eat into your bone mass. And most of us, when we're 80 years old, if we ever have a tumble, we're going to wish we had more muscle mass and bone mass. So we definitely don't want to lose any of that. So if you're going to do intermittent fasting at all, first off, have a conversation with Cheryl first to make sure you're a good candidate. There's some mental health things that you should make sure you've addressed well if you're going into a fast, because we do not want to incite any sort of bulimia or anorexia in what we're trying to do here. I don't want you to have less calories than you normally do, even with intermittent fasting. Now, the best kind of intermittent fasting that we can all benefit from is really just restricting our eating times during the waking day. And what I've learned about fasting over the last several weeks as I've prepared for this is that we all fast, and we're all designed to fast according to our circadian rhythm. So everybody knows what the circadian rhythm is? Basically, waking, sleeping, and the hormones that are associated with waking and sleeping. And so our hormones are primed to consume calories of any type about an hour after we wake up, and not before, and up to, but not including, the 3 hours before bedtime. And so if we eat outside of those, we'll call it 12 to 14 hours that we're awake, within that 12 to 14 hour window that we're awake, but our hormones are primed for consuming those calories, it's actually going to be to our benefit, and it's going to build us up. If we eat during the hours right before we go to bed, what happens is your stomach doesn't have enough time to process everything. And so a lot of that food that we just took in actually sits in our stomach overnight and doesn't get digested. Your body's not digesting if you let it sit in your stomach overnight. It's just sitting there because your body's using that to restore and heal. That's your time to restore and to heal, to build yourself back up, to recover from the things that happened to you during the day. And so we want to make sure that, let's say you go to bed 10 p.m. For me, that would be an early night. Most nights it's 11 or midnight. So if you're going to bed at 10 p.m., 7 p.m. is the absolute last calorie that you put in your body. And that's very important. Not, toothpaste doesn't count, right? It's not going to break this cycle, or you're not filling up your stomach. Hopefully you're spitting your toothpaste with all the gunk from your mouth back into the sink, but you're not having a glass of wine after that. You're not, going to have a couple bites of popcorn or, a peanut or anything, because you want that to be clear of your stomach and later down into the digestive system before your head hits the pillow, right? And then first thing in the morning, I see two questions. We'll get to them in just a minute. First thing in the morning, your hormones aren't primed yet. First thing when you wake up, your cortisol is at its highest, and it's to help get you going. It's a good cortisol that you need to just get yourself up and going for the day. But if you eat first thing, it's going to force your blood sugar and insulin higher, and you're going to develop more problems in the liver and in that visceral fat that has the highest metabolic danger. Yes.
So lately this has happened to me, my schedule gets too busy.
Yeah.
And I don't even find enough time to put together food, or I don't have leftovers.
Yes.
What happens if it gets into those 3 hours before bed and I haven't eaten since?
So it is better for your health to not eat for the rest of the night than to eat during those 3 hours, even if you've been calorie deprived during the day. Now, you might need to fudge on that a little bit and just say, I'm going to limit myself to, a small cube of steak, but I'm going to, push off bedtime by another hour to let that settle. Because I know there can be blood sugar issues up and down, and that is case by case for sure. I know we've talked about this a little bit just for you too. But yeah, it is better in general, again, and fasting, it needs to be a conversation with Cheryl, or if she's not available, at least with me, so we can get the conversation going to talk about, are you a good candidate? What's the best way to do it? And I would say for most of us, we should take an honest look at each of our calendars before we pick out time restricted eating and what this looks like for us and how to get the benefits of time restricted eating. For most of us, we just need to guard those hours. And that would equate to about a 14-hour eating window, because most of us wake up fairly early in the day and we stay up pretty late in the day and we sleep about 8 hours, right? Hopefully, right? In a healthy world, we have about 8 hours of sleep and 16 hours of awake. We can We can take that and we can take that 16 and we can restrict it down to about 13 or 12 hours of time restricted eating. And 12 hours is a great place to start for intermittent fasting. And just about everybody would benefit here if you were to just pick the 12 hours a day you were eating. Now, most of us, there's some social things that we need to account for. You know, we have families, we want to eat with certain people. They're not done with work until after 5 or 6 p.m. And so you need to take your bedtime, shift it back, your awake time, shift it back, and get those things in the right place so that you're making it fit for you. You make this work for you. There's not like a best way to do it. You can't say, oh yeah, I'm just going to save my first meal till lunchtime, or I'm going to, do my last meal at 9 p.m. That might work for one of us, but it's not going to work for all of us. It has to match those social functions, and we are social creatures, and usually we associate food with the end of the day, and so we just need to make sure that our bedtime is regular, but also regularly matched with where we get that last meal of the day. Now, this is going to be a huge boost for our liver in particular. The biggest benefit we are going to get from intermittent fasting is it takes that liver fat, and the liver gets to clean itself when it's not processing food. It allows our bodies to get rid of excess insulin, rid of excess blood sugar, and it allows our bodies to build itself up. When it's not consuming food, our gut gets to do the other things that it does. It's not just a sewer, right? It doesn't just take poop and move it out, right? What else does our gut do? It has our microbiome in it. It is the root, 70% of our immune system is in our gut. And so when it is not processing food, it gets to do those other things. And especially when we combine that with the nighttime, when it's also primed for healing and healing that gut lining, we need to focus on that. I saw a question here.
Yeah. What about if you have medication that you take at night that needs to be taken with food?
Just plan the last meal of the day so that it's 3 hours and you're taking that medication then. And yeah, you have to have a conversation with Cheryl about it.
Yeah.
For sure. No, like medication is so specific to you. Like, and we see this change all the time too, which is why you have to work with your primary care so that you're getting your blood levels and everything coincided there. So if you have a medication question, it's best because it is such a case by case. Just talk to Cheryl. Cheryl will guide you through it.
Example,
Yeah, gummies. Yeah.
I don't like gummies.
No,
some
no.
people
So
do. For example, my daughter,
yeah,
she has gummies.
yeah.
But she takes at night because it's easier for her.
Yeah. So like sleep gummies. So ideally you would get a gummy that's either not sweetened, which you're not going to find a gummy that is. Yeah. Or it's sweetened with like allulose. And allulose is much easier on your blood sugar, not easier on your insulin levels though.
What about sorbitol?
Sorbitol, same story, but more toxic. Yeah. Yep. Stevia, same story, less toxic. Yep. So yeah, here's the thing. And I think it might even be coming up. Yeah. So it actually leads right into the next thing, right? So processed foods and sugar. So let's just continue this story. So yeah, curbing your carbs is huge. But here, the thing with food, and especially candy gummies, right? You can't make, like, it's not found anywhere in nature to take gelatin and combine it with fruit and combine it with a sweetener that's not specifically coming from the fruit requires so much processing that's already ultra processed. So let's define ultra processed here real quick, because ultra processed food consumption is directly linked to all these conditions. If you just avoid ultra processed food altogether and don't listen to anything else I say, you're going to have so much success compared to the general American population. Now, I want you to have more success than that, which is why we're here for 3 hours. But it basically breaks down to this. It's called the NOVA system, which means new. Level 1 is the apple you pick off a tree, or that was picked off the tree for you. It doesn't matter who picked the apple, how long ago it was picked. The apple that was picked off the tree, if you just bite into that, that's level 1. Level 2, I took that apple and I cut it into slices. Maybe I peeled the skin off of it, maybe I didn't, but it still really resembles an apple. There's not too much difference there. Maybe I'm missing a little fiber here or there, maybe Maybe I even put a little something, I sprinkled some cinnamon on it, right? It's still two real foods that are combined without too much processing. Level 3 would be taking that apple and turning it into applesauce. Add a little cinnamon to that. It's emulsified, you remove the skin, but it's really broken down, and now the digestive enzymes that are in there are actually starting to eat the apple up a little bit. So it's not really an apple. Level 4 is a McDonald's apple pie. Right? You don't even have the recipe, and they won't give it to you on how to make this thing, let alone the tools to make all this thing from scratch yourself. Your apple pie is actually closer to level 3 than it is to McDonald's apple pie, which is fully level 4. And so if all you do is you take all that ultra processed food, you completely remove it, then you're going to get there. Now, let's take food like substances like candy, gummies. Where's that fall? Level 4, right? So what should we do with it? We should throw it out. We should find an alternative that we can do. So what would be a good example of that is making your own gelatin like candy. You can make your own gummies. You can. You have to buy gelatin, and you have to get some recipes for it, and you do have to add your own sweetener to it, because even adding like fruit puree is not sweet enough for where our taste buds are right now to make the jump from we'll say even a healthy candy like Smart Sweets, which would still be classified as an ultra processed food, but doesn't spike your blood sugar, but is class 4, to go from Smart Sweets, which are a healthier alternative, a sideways move away from the gummies, which I would suggest is a good step for you, to get it down to level 3, which is where I make my own gummies. You have to add something like stevia or allulose or monk fruit or honey or raw maple syrup. Your taste buds aren't ready for that. Right? And most of ours aren't, because we're so far away from what's intended that it's going to take several steps along the process. Now, some of you are wired differently, and I applaud you guys that you're just like, oh, Dr. Jake said, let's cut out the level 4 foods, the ultra processed foods, then let's go over here to level 1 foods, and you're going to do it. And yeah, hats off to you. I have not been able to do that successfully. My dad did. My dad is wired that way. And that's part of the reason why I had such quick results with everything. When God told him to stop smoking and stop drinking, he didn't just say, okay, well, I'm going to finish my pack of cigarettes and I'm going to drink the last of my alcohol. And no, he just like, okay, this goes in the garbage and I'm done.
Yeah.
And that was it. And those people have way more success with this process than the people like me who have taken 10 years and are still like learning little things and taking baby steps in the right direction, and sideways moves away from the less healthy stuff towards the healthier stuff. But for all of us, we should actively be working to go from level 4 to at least level 3. That should be the biggest action step when it pertains to food in this. So yeah, processed foods and sugar, most of what's out there should not be considered food. And actually, Dr. Lustig breaks this down, and he says that by Webster's definition, anything that contains sugar in it should not be like added sugar at all, should not be considered food, because it inhibits burning and it inhibits building. And that's the definition of a food, is it has to either burn or build, one way or the other. Yes, ma'am.
Well, I got told, sorry,
Yeah.
but I got told that sorbitol was from birch sap.
Yeah, no. All this stuff is from really good stuff, and it helps in certain situations. For someone that's a diabetic, it's better for you to eat sorbitol than it is to eat raw sugar or high fructose corn syrup. But sorbitol is going to have the exact same insulin response as sugar or high fructose corn syrup without the sugar there. And so then it breaks down your glycogen stores and it turns into liver fat, which is going to kill you just as fast as diabetes.
But also, sorbitol is better than
Yeah, absolutely. Same with xylitol. Yeah, there are health benefits to some of these other things. So like, what's the one? Maple syrup, raw maple syrup. It's going to spike your blood sugar and it's going to spike your insulin levels. However, it has some magnesium in it. And the sugars that are in there spin the opposite direction as the electrons that are in that sugar spin the opposite direction than the ones that are in this stuff. And so cancer doesn't recognize it as food, so it's not fueling cancer. But it is still spiking your blood insulin and your blood sugar, and it's creating all these other issues, and you can give yourself diabetes with that. So What's the answer, right? Severe moderation from where we're at. So I had the question up here. How many of these bags does the average American consume in a year? More. I was telling you guys the story beforehand. I'm missing 100 pounds of sugar out the back. I bought 350 pounds of sugar a year or 2 years ago. We had it all up here so you guys could see how much. And I went back to pull it all out. I'm like, I'm missing 100 pounds of sugar. It went somewhere. Somebody took it. I don't know where it went. I didn't use it. No, I didn't. So I broke it down into 2 stacks. But basically, yeah, we have 350 pounds of sugar a year. Now, if you drink soda, this right here is how much you can consume in high fructose corn syrup or aspartame, or the other, or sorbitol. And that much of that is 20 times more than we just had of regular glucose before aspartame or sorbitol or stevia or anything that was invented. We had less than 5 pounds of sugar per year in 1900 as Americans. And it's like, oh, I wonder where all this, inflammation and diabetes and obesity and all these metabolic diseases come from. It's this added to everything. So you cut out sugary sweetened beverages, you're cutting out that much sweetener just in the bin.
What is it? It's the average of how much per year?
100 pounds just of high fructose corn syrup or aspartame if you're doing, diet beverages. But it's crazy how much is in there. And then I believe it's the American Diabetes Association or the FDA. I can't remember which acronym said it. They're all separate and need to talk to each other more. They said that that same amount that we consume in just our sodas is an acceptable amount for annual consumption. But that's still, almost 25% less than what we're getting, but it's still 20 times more than what we got, 100 years ago. What do you think our bodies are adapted to genetically? What we ate for several thousand to several million years, or, what we've just had in the last century? Yeah, genetically, our bodies are primed not for that amount, but for half of this in a year. And you cannot eat ultra processed foods and get to half of this. I mean, you look at one of the things that was just so sad to me was when you look at, and I'll let you guys guess here because it's kind of fun to guess, but who do you think is the biggest seller of fast food? Who sells the most fast food in this country? McDonald's is usually pretty high up there. Subway, they're pretty high up there. KFC, a little lower down. Chick-fil-A is high up there. It's the public school system. And it's not even close. Not even close. It's the next 2 or 3 under there. And yeah, actually, there are some public schools where they have McDonald's in there. My school had Taco Bell growing up. Yeah, and it's just gotten worse and worse. And go to the podcast to get more background on it. He's got this whole movement on how to change that in particular, because if we're going to change it in kids, we got to get out of the paid lunches. But breakfast, every kid gets a hot meal for breakfast, right? It's Fruit Loops and orange juice. How many grams of sugar is in a bowl of Fruit Loops? Yeah, it's 41 is what they said on the podcast. And I wouldn't know because I don't have Fruit Loops to go look at the box for. And it's like, that is more by 10 grams than you should have in the entire day just for breakfast. And it's 50, then it's 20 grams more. It is absolutely ridiculous. The ultra processed. Yeah, I'm going to skip through a couple of these where we are way behind time and we got to get going. Clean protein. We talked about protein and why that matters. You don't just eat the food you're eating, you're also eating what they eat. If what they was sprayed with pesticides, it's coming into your system. We talked about the role of insulin with that. So part of the challenge, we're getting into the 30-day challenge, is going to be breaking your fast with a protein smoothie. And I put a really, my favorite recipe is on the back of your notes page. It's a super berry smoothie. It includes the protein. This is the same protein that I used in the coffee. You can break your fast with the coffee, or you can break your fast with the smoothie. It works the same way, except with the smoothie, you're getting a little bit more fiber because you're putting berries in there, right? So either way, it's really good. What I love about our protein is that first off, you think it's corn-fed whey or corn-fed, or sorry, in this case, it's bone broth. You think it's corn-fed cows? No, it's grass-fed, grass-finished, which you will not find anywhere else. You go to GNC, you're like, I want your grass-fed bone broth protein. Get the highest cost one, probably going to cost you $200 for a 30-day supply. $200 for a 30-day supply. And they're going to have sorbitol as the sweetener, or they're going to have aspartame as the sweetener, or they're going to have real sugar, and it's going to be, half of it's going to be maltodextrin, which is basically corn starch. You know, it doesn't have any caloric value. It's just filler, turns into sugar in your bloodstream again. So this is just 100% pure bone broth protein. The only extras you're going to find in there are the benefits of having things that come from bone broth, like collagen, which is really good for your gut and really good for your joints and really good for your bones. And guess what? Every cell in your body or every tissue in your body is made out of collagen, right? So this is my one. If you've got gut issues or you've got inflammatory issues, get the bone broth protein as opposed to the whey protein. Whey protein is really good for losing weight, but more research is going into the bone broth protein. It's actually better for gut issues and inflammatory disorders and joint issues.
But what about if you
Yes, yes, yes. Just as many benefits from that. There's just more research on whey protein with losing weight. But really, any protein, you're not getting all the calories out of it because of the thermic effect. So let's say you get a scoop of this, and I don't remember what the caloric content of that is, but what actually gets into your system is 25% of that. So you could consume 2,000 calories of all protein, and you'd only get about 1,600 calories for your day that actually hit your system. And then if it's the right ones, it gets used for exactly what it needs to. So how many calories in a scoop?
Scoop is 100 calories.
So 100 calories, you're only getting 75 calories in one scoop of that.
And 21 grams of protein.
Yep. 21. Yeah. No. So that's excellent. None of that is being turned into fatty liver, which is where most of us are getting that from. So we have to get that. Max Living Approach, we've got 2 plans. One, for those of you that are good, you have no symptoms, no inflammatory conditions, no nothing, you're okay to go ahead and start on the core plan. Yep. So the core plan is very, very simple. It's, just food by God. It's real food. It's all the foods from Nova Stage 1 to Nova Stage 3. And you can even get away with the 80-20 rule, which is 20% of the time, go have a McDonald's like swirly sugary something, or Starbucks swirly sugary something. I don't care. You can get away with it because 80% of the time you're eating good stuff. Your body is fearfully and wonderfully made and can handle the crap. And I mean that literally, like it's not food. You're just putting crap in there, but your body can handle it. So whole foods, minimally processed, naturally sourced proteins, and no added sugars. That's the main thing that you're looking at. Yeah.
So when it says no added sugar.
That is not the carbohydrate versus fiber. Right? That's just added.
You're saying so, I mean, that's purchased, but it's
Yeah.
okay to add your own.
Yeah. But like go for like real sweeteners, like we talk about coconut palm sugar or raw honey or the grade B maple syrup. If you are already healthy, all that stuff is fine, right? In moderation, right? That it's like dessert. Keep dessert at dessert after you've had all your fiber and all your protein and all your fats. And you're already feeling kind of full. You just want something to satisfy that sweet tooth. If you're already healthy, yeah, no, you're good. But if you need to heal from something, that's where the advanced plan comes in. So the core plan is food by God, eliminate the food by man. The advanced plan is the healing diet. And so with the advanced plan, we have to make sure that we're eliminating any net carbohydrates out of your diet as much as possible. Now, not completely, like there's some vegetables out there. And I don't need you guys going and buying a carbohydrate counter or, getting, a ketone monitor or any of that stuff, unless you really need to. If you want to do the ketogenic diet and you want to try that out, there's certain conditions that's really helpful for, but we don't need that to be on the healing diet. We need to get those 3 hormones working correctly for us, right? What are those 3 again? Insulin, leptin, and the gremlins, right? The ghrelin. Yeah. Yep, the gremlins. So the advanced plan is designed to get those 3 back into the right place. And so, yeah, you have to get that down to net carbs down to essentially zero. Now, don't count it like I was saying. Real veggies, you know, and then but then you have to cut out the sugary fruits too. So a banana is not a healthy breakfast. I'm sorry. There's not very many um, fibers in the banana. And what does fiber do? So why is fiber such a good guy here? Well, what fiber does is it lays down a gelatin matrix over the top part of your small intestine, and it makes it so that the sugar cannot be absorbed directly into the bloodstream. And it allows that sugar to pass further down the digestive system into the duodenum. And the duodenum is where you've got so much, and it really starts, it picks up. It's like the lower you get in your digestive system, the more good bacteria you have, your probiotics, your microbiota. That's where most of that resides. And so when the sugar makes it down that far, guess what it's not doing? Getting into your bloodstream, right? And it's feeding those good bacteria. And so then you have a healthier microbiome. And so when you have high fiber foods, even if they have a lot of carbohydrates, the net carbohydrates on that drops significantly. You literally, carbohydrate minus probiotics, that's your net carbohydrates. Or not probiotics, fiber, minus fiber, that's your net carbohydrates. And you're feeding the good bacteria. And so this has how much fiber? Zero, right? It doesn't come with any. And so we can follow that guideline. So like an apple, Nova Class 1 is going to have tons of fiber. Nova Class 2, where we've cut the skin off it, put it in slices, has less fiber, so more of it's going to hit our bloodstream. Nova Class 3, where we turn it into applesauce, has essentially no fiber. They've removed that, and sometimes they even add a little bit more sugar in there as well. It's going to spike the blood sugar even more. So the closer we can get to Nova Class 1, the closer we are to the advanced plan. Now, that's part of it. Now, on advanced plan, we also have to eliminate the bad fats, right? We have to completely eliminate those. So that's pretty much anything coming in a bottle, unless it's extra virgin, extra virgin olive oil or extra virgin coconut oil, unrefined. Those are going to be really, really good for our guts and actually necessary. We need to have a lot of those. And if you do want to break it down, make sure that at least 50% of your calories are coming from fats. There isn't much of a thermic effect there, but your body will just use it in places as opposed to breaking it down for energy. But if you get your body used to burning it for energy, it's much more efficient because there's 9 calories in a gram of fat, which is going to make you feel more full. It's going to stick around with you better, and you're not going to be craving all those carbohydrates later on. And then the other thing that we have to do here is we have to make sure that all the proteins that we get are not corn-fed, essentially, right? They have to be raised naturally as much as possible, as much as it is possible in your life. And so that means finding a farmer that raises it and finishes it grass-fed or pasture-raised. So you might not know that it's 100% grass-fed because they're not stuffing all the food in their mouth themselves, but they're out there and they're getting to choose that, hey, this is where that is out there. So those are the big things. Organic matters, but it doesn't matter as much as it used to because organic has been hijacked by the food industry. It's better to just grow your own food or to pick it from a farmer that you know that they're not spraying the artificial stuff on or the stuff that's non-toxic. So getting the produce in season is probably the biggest step that you can take outside of going to the farmer's market when it comes to that stuff. So those 4 steps are really what we're looking at with that. And then always, of course, we talked about avoiding your allergens and sensitivities. Talk to us about those because those will disrupt the blood sugars almost as much. I had a friend that was fighting cancer. I told this story at the cancer workshop, and he was going ketogenic because ketones, they actually kill cancer when they come in contact with it. But he kept going out of ketosis anytime he ate strawberries. And he's like, I wonder why strawberries are pulling me out. They're rich in fiber. They don't have any naturally occurring fructose in them at all. Why would it be spiking my insulin and blood sugar and knocking me out of ketosis? And he found out he had a food sensitivity to strawberries. And so you have to be able to identify those things. There's actually some really quick and easy and inexpensive ways to do that. We'll teach you more of that later. So did you have anything to add about any of that? Okay, so that should have taken us to the break. Obviously, that's a lot of content. We are going a little too slow. So let me hand it back to you for this section here.
Okay. So toxins. And Dr. Jake was saying a couple stories. First of all, I didn't grow up in Lincoln. I grew up 90 miles west, near Grand Island. We're not sure what's going on out there, but my daughter was diagnosed with an autoimmune disease. My niece, my brother's daughter, was diagnosed with an autoimmune disease. My best friend, who I've known since before kindergarten, her daughter has been diagnosed with an autoimmune disease. A lot of other people out there of our age have children with autoimmune diseases. Something's going on. Is it the water? Probably something that's being carried in the water. Okay. Just recently, in January, this was a news article 2 weeks ago, maybe. A particular beef processing plant in Grand Island, quote unquote, accidentally released 4 million gallons of contaminated sludge water into it got out of their leaching pond into the Wood River. And of course, the Wood River flows into the Platte River, which where do we get our water? The Platte River. From the Platte River, where does it go? The Missouri River. And then, on down. They did 6 hours after they noticed this leakage, they called authorities. And then it took a while after that to actually get the large vacuums out there to vacuum up all this waste product. Okay. But rest easy, Grand Island, because there's no immediate danger in your water supply. That that was on the news. Rest easy, Grand Island. But what's it going to do 10 years from now, 20 years from now? It's going to change our DNA. And as we have children, or as our children have children, or the people living out there are more toxic, where was I raised, anhydrous was a common thing. I can't even think of what's the pesticide? Glyphosate. Well, what's the other brand name? Roundup. Everybody had a jug of Roundup. You always used it. So was it that? Who really knows what it was? But lots of toxins that we're exposed to without necessarily even knowing about it. Other toxins, plastics. What do we have?
Yeah, plastic.
Okay, toxins, plastics, Teflon, the nice non-stick coatings that you put on your pans. What does that do? That comes off in your food supply as you're scratching, just the fumes of it get into your food supply. They disrupt the metabolism. We talked a little earlier about some obesogens, some roles of some of those chemicals that interfere with our hormones. Typically, when we think of hormones, most of us think of estrogen and testosterone. We also need to think of thyroid as a hormone. Insulin is a hormone. We need to think of growth hormone. FSH and LH, which are follicle stimulating hormone, luteinizing hormone, that actually tell our testes and ovaries what to do. Adrenocorticotropic hormone, which tells our body how to raise and lower our cortisol levels. Dr. Jake talked a little while ago about the role of cortisol, the inflammatory process. All of those things are being disrupted by these toxins that we're being exposed to. But we're being told again that it's an acceptable level. Well, we don't know what acceptable level means. There have been studies done in in umbilical cord blood. These are babies before they're born. After they're born, they test the blood in the umbilical cord. There are high levels of a lot of toxins. So even in utero, we're being exposed to toxins. So we can eliminate, but by being aware, hopefully we can try to minimize. And that's the best that we can do. Again, they're going to disrupt, like I said, the hormones, the toxins are going to interrupt the ghrelin, the leptin, the insulin, the cortisol, and any other hormones that you can name are going to be disrupted by those toxin exposures. Um, so I guess I just covered endocrine disruptors. Um, and obesogens, so just some on the list. So the obesogens trigger the body to make more fat cells. They block the fat burning ability, or they alter the appetite, um, suppression of the ghrelin and the leptin. So examples, like we said, phytoestrogens, so soybeans, lentils, chickpeas, fungicides, things that are used to treat wood for building your buildings that we're exposed to. That is an obesogen. Burning some types of fuel gives off toxins. Flame retardants. You can't even buy a pair of children's pajamas without flame retardant on them. But again, that is an obesogen. That's going to interrupt their, it might keep them safe in the event of a house fire, but
It's on your furniture.
it's on your furniture. Everything is flame retardant, and we're inhaling that. Um, and it's becoming part of us. Preservatives in foods, the waxy medications are obesogens. There are products to make our pills plasticized, or to make that cap easier to swallow, or to allow it to be time released. Those are all obesogens as well that are going to interfere with our fat metabolism, as well as increased toxins. Oh, I'm just keep jumping ahead. Okay. Okay. So what do we need? I'm going to let you kind of cover this one.
Okay, yeah. So I'm going to look at how do we make sure that cells are repairing from damage? Because are any of us going to be able to avoid all of these completely? No, I mean, even if we go completely organic with everything, we're still going to be in other people's houses. We're going to go to work in an environment that we can't control everything. And so there are some things that our body needs to help our detoxification systems handle these. And so these are some of the key ingredients here. Number one, here is selenium. I first heard about selenium when we were going through on how to repair the thyroid. It's very essential for thyroid health, but it's an essential micronutrient. It's actually a mineral that your body needs. It helps with DNA repair and synthesis, and you can see it's found in some of the foods that we mention a lot: nuts, seafood, and organ meats in particular. I don't mention organ meats a lot because I haven't started eating a lot of organ meats, but if you enjoy it, yeah, that's where it's found. The next one here, alpha lipoic acid. It's the network antioxidant. So a lot of these vitamins that we talk about, they're vitamins because they're antioxidants, and the role of antioxidants is basically to bind to free radicals in the body. And free radicals are typically things that are cancer causing. I think they're defined by being a free electron in the system, but there's a lot of things that have free electrons in your system. So, but what it does is it regulates vitamin C, so huge antioxidant, right? Everybody knows about vitamin C. Linus Pauling, he took 1,000 milligrams every single day. Vitamin E, another essential antioxidant. Glutathione is probably the most potent antioxidant. Those of you that have liked to take N-acetylcysteine, this is what N-acetylcysteine turns into, is that glutathione. So this regulates that. Then it, as an antioxidant, it also helps to neutralize free radicals. And then huge, chelates metals from the body. So my dad, when he was exposed to all this heavy metals from welding, in the car developing process, if he had had some more alpha lipoic acid in his system, he could have been getting that out. So where do you get that in your diet? Red meats have that. Spinach has that. Broccoli has that. And of course, some of the superfood vegetables will have that as well. Glycine, the next one. So this is an essential amino acid. that helps produce antioxidants and support liver detoxification. So again, you can find that in red meats, organ meats, fish, bone broth, things of that ilk. Next would be botanicals. So most of these things we don't eat unless you're getting a lot of teas. You're probably not finding very many botanicals, but they aid in a lot of this stuff that's listed up here. But some of the botanicals that you can use to help with toxins include milk thistle, and then acerola, garlic, which I love. You know, absolutely. Mix that with onion, and it becomes even more potent antioxidant. Clove, which we're diffusing in the office almost nonstop through the winter because of its role in helping support the immune system. And then spinach. Of course, we don't get enough spinach in our diets for the most part. This is, I usually add a handful of spinach to that organic smoothie recipe. So these are all ingredients that we also put into our cell repair supplement. So this, for those of you that have been around for a while, we used to have the daily defense supplement. I said take that like Tylenol or an ibuprofen to help with any inflammation type issues. This is the replacement for that because that had N-acetylcysteine in it, and N-acetylcysteine is being removed by the FDA as being available for us to sell because they want to give that just to drug companies to be able to use in their medications. We can still get you N-acetylcysteine, but we have to just give you precursors for it. And so this has all the precursors, including all that stuff in there. If you still want to buy N-acetylcysteine, we still carry it. Until the FDA completely pulls the rug from under us, we figured out a way to make that available. But cell repair, because of its role in helping your body cleanse out everything, is part of that 30-day challenge as well. And you've taken it. You said that it is working similarly to that.
It works very similar to daily defense.
Dr. Baker trying to help me sell that for everything.
Yeah.
That one especially for 4 months, and I love it.
Yeah.
I've been starting to eat healthy again. I'm on my second round with Dr. Baker. He helped me lose 55 pounds, many years ago, and I followed what he said. He helped my health, and that it also helped my brain fog.
Yeah.
I love that pill.
Yeah. So for those of you watching online, she said that she's on her second round and it's helped with her brain fog, and yeah, just a great thing here. So the next one here that's part of the 30-day challenge is Max Fit. So if you are actually going to do the challenge and you see on there 20 minutes of exercise, this is going to help bridge the gap for you. So there's a few things in here that are in Max Fit. The big two are ashwagandha and decaffeinated, not just green coffee bean extract, but decaffeinated green coffee bean extract. We're not trying to spike your cortisol levels, give you an artificial high, give you artificially more energy, but the decaffeinated green coffee bean extract and the ashwagandha both help to support good energy levels as you're working through this, and it also helps support healthy protein metabolism so that you're getting that protein into the muscles so that you're not just pulling extra nutrients from the actual muscles that are there, but you're getting protein into the muscles. So this is a very synergistic one as well. So the 30-day bundle or the 30-day challenge includes these three. So the bundle is these three. If you're buying anything today, and because you need to restock, because every time we have a class, it's always 15% off supplements. If you get the bundle today, which is mostly going to be pre-order, then you're actually going to get 20% off everything instead. So that's there. I want to help you guys. I do make more money at these events, so I try to help you as much as I can when we do these events by giving you a bigger discount when you're actually participating in what we're trying to accomplish there. So those three are in the bundle, and that's on the order form. So if you want to do that, you can start filling that out now, but we'll do that at the end. We'll help you process that at the end.
You are not in that.
No, none of these are in the daily essentials packets. So
Take all of those.
yep, or together, but yeah. So because you're usually getting your vitamins with the first meal of the day or the last meal of the day. Oftentimes this overlaps with that. But yeah, you'd end up taking those better there. And the good thing again about ours, you don't have to worry about artificial additives. There's no sweeteners in any of these. This one has some stevia in it, but it's not an overwhelming amount of stevia that's going to spike your blood insulin levels at all. And then these have no sweeteners, no fillers, nothing that's artificial and not organic. Anyways, yes.
Sometimes still in the gut protocol, so they if I were to do that, should I wait to do that when done?
Yeah, I would finish the gut protocol first. Yeah. Yeah, you can get some protein now if you want, but yeah, for those of you that are wondering about the gut restore protocol, the 4R protocol, that one needs to wait till the end. All right, so we're going to jump into planning your grocery store trips. Teeting on the advanced plan, right? So yeah, this is good stuff here. So we got 8 steps for you guys. We're going to just bounce through them rapid fire here, but this one should make sense. Schedule it, right? If you go to the grocery store when you're hungry, are you going to get good food or bad food? You're going to lose. This is where we lose. And 2, also just know, if you went in the grocery store, you don't have to fight that battle at home. If you don't buy anything bad when you go to the grocery store, you don't have to decide whether or not you're going to eat that candy that's sitting in the fridge, right? Or in the cabinet, or the chips that you put in the pantry. So schedule a specific day and time is really big. Next, Dr. Lustig said 73% of the food that's in the store is basically just not food. It's poison. It's packaged as food. It tastes like food, but it's poison. How do we avoid that? Well, you're going to avoid most of that. Not all of it, but most of it, just by shopping around the outside of the store. Now, that doesn't work in Costco because they do it differently. But in most grocery stores, if you go to a Hy-Vee, you go to Whole Foods even, you go to natural grocers, most of the stuff that's good for you is on the outside of the store. There are some exceptions, of course, with store layouts, but that's where most of the natural stuff is. You're going to find less toxins there. 3, buy more foods without labels. Right? If it doesn't have a nutrition facts label on the back, that's not bad. That usually just means you're getting the whole food. It's Nova Class 1, right? It isn't changed from where it gets on the tree. That ground beef, that's Nova Class 1, right? The apple, Nova Class 1, the green pepper, the red pepper, the carrot, definitely on, no labels there. But then when it does have a label, read a label. A general rule of thumb is if it has more than 3 ingredients listed, that's already Nova Class 4. Yeah, there's an exception, like that bag of salad. Like if you were to just read the salad part, there are multiple types of salad in there that gets it beyond 3. But the dressing there was like 10 ingredients. And yes, we got you some good healthy ones. If you look at the Primal Kitchen brand, there are 10 or 15 ingredients there. But as a general rule of thumb, the foods that are good for you are going to be the ones that have 3 or less ingredients listed in it, just because that's what they do to it. Next, the fewer ingredients listed, the better. Yeah, so I just said that. So those 2 go together. And when you're reading the ingredients label, don't just look at this section here, right? I told you that trick, where they list the sugar out. 0 grams of added sugar, except it's in the dressing, which is going on there. And if I eat, how much to get there? Yeah. So they don't have to list everything if they jump around there. So you read what's actually in the food and not just what's on the nutrition label. Then look for natural ingredients, not chemicals. If it has a number in it, is that natural? No. Red 40. Did that come from strawberries? No, it's chemical, so we don't do it. And also, if you can't pronounce it, you can't figure out what it is. Sometimes that means they added a vitamin to it, which is okay. But what's their sourcing on that vitamin? Is it an organic vitamin? Did they pull it? What is it? Like even some of the organic milks I drink have a lot of that added. Guar gum, is that an emulsifier? I believe. Yeah, I try to avoid adding emulsifiers into food. Like obviously there's some things that you just need to emulsify if it's going to be shelf stable, but that's the problem. We weren't, like the foods that are good for us aren't supposed to be shelf stable. Oh, thickening agent? Yeah. Yeah, a good texture thing. Yeah, and like if you're on the core plan, that's fine, right? Instead of gelatin, yeah, it could be. Yeah, I'm not the expert on guar gum, but I would say, like when you're looking at that, can you make it yourself? Maybe not guar gum per se, but let's say what is it in? Is it in ice cream? Can you make ice cream yourself? Yeah, that's why I said it, because I get plant-based ice cream, and that's where I remembered it from. But yeah, can you make that ice cream yourself? Well, I could, It's way easier if I don't have to. But yeah, I'm choosing that, Nova Class 4 food instead of going a healthier option. Now, if I'm not lactose intolerant, making your own ice cream is actually very simple. It's a very simple process. You just have to know what to add to it to turn it into the ice cream and do it well. Yeah, you had a question? Statement.
Say, yeah, I'm lactose intolerant.
Yeah.
And if you have the right machine, you can actually do the same thing as lactose intolerant.
Yeah, no, you can definitely do it. Even plant-based if you wanted to, but you just have to have the right tools and the right ingredients. Beware of marketing. Don't trust the front. Right? I gave this example, and this is a great food, and for most of you, this would be a great move to go from what you're eating to this. And if this was just everything that you ate most of the day, this would be fantastic for you. However, can you trust that it's 100% healthy based off of what's on the front? No, never. And that's a great way to look at it. Is does this look good? Yes. Can I trust it? Never. You have to flip it around, read that ingredient label, check everything out. Those keywords, low in carbs. Some of the most highly processed foods out there, low in carbs or keto friendly or gluten free or sugar free, does not mean that it's healthy one bit. So, and even that organic label, that was the biggest one on there. The biggest thing is organic, and that doesn't mean as much as it used to. Should be lower in pesticides, harmful pesticides, but not necessarily. Watch out for sugars. I think Dr. Lustig said there's over 250 different names for sugar, and most food companies, in order to keep it from being the first ingredient on a label, will divide it up into 2 or 3 or 7 or 10 or 15. If you look at a thing of Fruit Loops or any other cereals, it's going to have several different types of sugar in there, so you have to watch out for those.
I'm curious about the whole keto friendly.
Yeah.
What is keto friendly?
Yeah.
Is keto
So
or is not?
yeah, the question is keto friendly, and the answer is actually very individual dependent. So it's not, so they can't claim it to be ketogenic because you can't be ketogenic without something actually producing ketones in your body. And there's no food out there that'll make you ketogenic. It's actually a habit that you have to have. So you could eat keto friendly foods all day, but if you have a bag of gummies at the end of the day, you're not going to produce ketones. And so it's keto friendly because it can't do that. But then on top of that, there's no regulation on that statement at all. There's no ketogenic board that says these are ketogenic foods that, people that want to do ketogenic diet can follow and eat exclusively and go into ketosis. So really what they're looking for is they're looking to make those net carbohydrates as low as possible. And there's a lot of ways to do that that are actually not good for you. So the easiest way, the best way to do it that is good for you is to add fiber, because fiber takes those free sugars, reduces the net carbohydrates down, make sure that any sugars that are in there get lower so that it's the gut bacteria that actually eat that up. But there's another way to do that that isn't good for you, and that's adding sorbitol. That's adding xylitol. That's adding erythritol. And some of those are slightly better than others, right? We talked about like sorbitol and xylitol can be good for the teeth and good for dental health, but it's still spiking that blood insulin. And even though it's keto friendly and you can lose weight doing it and you can get yourself into ketosis with it, it's not good for your liver. It's not good for the fat around it. And so we want to make sure that we're avoiding that. So definitely look for those. Look for artificial sweeteners. Artificial sweeteners, one of the things I don't like about sorbitol is the way it breaks down into some harmful chemicals inside the body once it becomes once it hits your bloodstream. Hydrogenated or partially hydrogenated oils, usually they're there to take like a peanut butter and make it smooth and consistent all throughout, even when it's not refrigerated at all. And so you want to avoid those as well, but other things like that as well. So let's transition from those 8 steps there into genetics and mindset. So genetics absolutely play a role in this. I mentioned this earlier about how during the Great Depression, if your family struggled and you're several generations down the line, you might still be shorter than your great-great-great grandparents were, because That was, that food deprivation. So this launches us into a field called epigenetics. Who's heard of epigenetics? Yeah, most of us, right? And so basically what epigenetics is that your gene expression is not controlled by the genes themselves, it's controlled by the environment. So just because you have a gene doesn't mean that it turns out. Now, some of this, it is true. Like if you have brown eyes, you were born with that brown eye gene. Some of us have blue eyes. We're born with the blue eye gene. Some of us have brown hair. Most of us have brown hair. We have the brown hair gene. And some of that just cannot be altered at all. But there are certain things, like if you have too much copper exposure, it'll change your eye color.
I got my curls from grief.
Yeah, you get your curls from grief. My wife got wavy hair from Annika, from being pregnant with somebody that had genes for curly hair. And so there's things that we do that change this. And mindset is honestly the biggest one of these. And it's, yes, you can say stress, lack of sleep, but more so than either of those other two, negative self-talk or accepting the negative talk about you from others. If you believe lies about yourself, you actually start to make them true within yourself. Your body adapts, your cells adapt to the environment. If you take a cell that's not diabetic and you surround it with enough sugar for long enough, what's it going to do? It's going to become a diabetic cell, right? And the same thing happens with mindset, with stress. If you created a stress, let's just say you're like my dad, working 120 hours a week, constantly on deadline. Even if he was getting enough sleep and all the right nutrients, his blood cortisol levels are going to be super high, which makes his blood sugar levels super high, because even if he is eating all the right foods, he's going to pull from glycogen stores and create blood sugar out of those the glycogen stores. And that excess sugar is going to turn to fat, and he's going to make a fatty liver, and he's going to give himself diabetes, all just from stress. And that's physiology. That's normal human physiology. I just took an endocrinology class and condensed it into 30 seconds. That works the same way with heart disease. It works the same way with cancer cells. It works the same way with all the chronic diseases that we're talking about today. You can undo all of this with the wrong kind of stress. And let me tell you, it's the negative self-talk or accepted self-talk from other people. If somebody tells you we're in a pandemic and everybody should be afraid and you believe it, that you should be afraid, yep, you're going to start reacting to everything out of fear. You're going to become a fearful person. Your genes will react differently. Your immune system is going to be suppressed. You're going to be more likely to get the disease, whether it's COVID or disease X that they're talking about coming around the corner that they haven't identified yet, but we know it's coming. Some lab somewhere already going. All right. So we have to make sure that we're protecting our minds. Our genes are not our destiny. We have to realize this. We turn them on and we turn them off with the environment that we place these cells in. You take a cancer cell, you put it into a healthy body, it doesn't grow cancer, it dies. You take a healthy cell, you put it in a cancerous body, it becomes a cancer cell or a cancerous environment. That's the research that we see. It's the environment that controls it, and mindset, stress, negative self-talk, lack of positive self-talk. Yes. They also contribute to this. So we have to make sure that we are controlling that environment. We do that to our foods. It's going to change the genes in our food. And then we talk about the way food is prepared. If you eat a food that has heart disease, so think about corn-fed cows. What do they have a lot of in the meat? Oh, a lot of things. But marbling, that's the thing that we're looking for. That's the thing that we love about our cuts of steak. Marbling is actually a sign that that cow had metabolic disease. So when you eat something that has metabolic disease, what's going to happen to you? Outside of all the physiology that I've already taught you about how insulin works with those branched chain amino acids, it's going to give you metabolic disease, is the basic simplification there. There's also things called exosomes in our foods. And exosomes actually communicate. Their job is to communicate with our genes to turn things off. So yeah, I don't need you to understand all the science and how it works and everything. Just know that this stuff matters. Your genes are not your destiny. I mean, even looking at the, was it the BRCA gene for breast cancer? Statistically, what's the likelihood that you get breast cancer compared to the normal person if you have that gene and you don't have that gene? Is it 5%? Less than 5%. And we have people that are making decisions like cutting off their breast tissue completely to try to prevent it. And when it's less than 5% chance that that gene would even give it to them. Yeah, you're not going to develop breast cancer there, but if you have metabolic disease, guess what you're going to do? You're going to develop cancer somewhere. And if not cancer, then it's going to be heart disease or diabetes or something along the line that's going to kill you there. So we got to make sure that we're staying ahead of it. So toxic top 5, unfiltered water. Yeah, frankenfood. What's frankenfood? Genetically modified. And it's not just to get more pesticides anymore. They're actually genetically modifying salmon. Now they're genetically modifying and growing meat in labs. Yeah, the Beyond Meat stuff. It's just crazy.
An example.
Yeah.
And I love this example because it's Lincoln, Nebraska. The McRib sandwich developed in the lab at the University of Nebraska Lincoln. Yeah. So if you didn't know that, yeah, there's nothing real about it. No, they're not real ribs at all.
No, that's not. It's not at all. So you definitely have to stay ahead of that. Household cleaners, tons of endocrine disruptors, obesogens in there. Cosmetics, lipstick. Most lipsticks actually still have lead in them. So yeah, no, thank you. Aluminum and heavy metals. Where do you find these mostly? Medication. Medication. Anything that's injected probably has aluminum in it, right? Right? Heavy metals. Yeah, no, it's the number 3 cause of death last year. It was emergency room errors, right? Prescribing the wrong thing to the wrong people or somebody that got too much of something. You know, you add in outside of the emergency rooms, anything that was done just drug related, medicine related deaths, and you have more deaths due to the whole medical system than any other singular cause. Yeah, over 1 million deaths. The next closest one was cardiovascular disease, and that was 850. Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. You talk about MRSA or some of that stuff, and it's just so. And it's not their fault, right? I mean, none of the nurses you trained were in it for the money, right?
Well,
hopefully.
that's why they start.
Career, right? Yeah, hopefully they're all in it to be helpful, but also have a career and support themselves. And you'd probably say the same thing in your career as well. Like, no, most of these people are good people that want good things for good. The best way to avoid all of these deaths, whether it's medically induced errors or heart disease or cancer, is to stay healthy, right? Yeah, just don't get there. So improperly filtered water, this is pretty key here. Someone was asking me the other day, I can't remember, I don't even think she's here, probably watching online. She was asking, what should I do? I don't have much money. Where do I start with my water? Should I just get bottled water? I'm like, no, you're going to spend more money in a year on bottled water, plus all the plastics from what it was sitting in all day. The weather changes that. It's going to leach BPA or other estrogen mimickers or endocrine disruptors into the water. The best thing to do is just get a cheap Berkey filter. It's a gravity filter. You can get a small one to start, and it's charcoal. It's a charcoal filter. You can get a ceramic filter for it, maybe a little bit more expensive and not reusable or cleanable. But you get that for your counter, and you're going to spend maybe $50 on filters for the year after you make the initial purchase of $150. So you spend like $200 in the first year, and then it's just like $50 a year after that. So great start.
So just go to your own faucet.
But compare that to how much water you would have to buy to get all of that, right? Is the city of Lincoln's water filtration system equipped to handle 4 million gallons of fecal material? No. Yeah. Yeah, we need better water. And if you look at the Environmental Working Group's report on clean water, they're not concerned about fecal material in the water. It's other things like arsenic that are in our water in amounts that are not recommended for anybody. So should you drink tap water? No. Should you die of thirst? Also no, but
The states in general
yeah.
are not good.
Yeah.
Water.
Well, yeah, and
I personally cannot drink that.
no, I can't either.
I get super sick.
Yeah. So From there, there's other things that you can do. Obviously, you can build in filtration into like the tap. You can get a whole house water filtration system if you have a little bit more money, and you can spend some more on that. There's Aquasana has like shower filters. And when I was in school, that was the cheapest way for us to start, was to get something that got all the chlorine out, because that's one of the big things there. Get something that gets all the chlorine out and a lot of the other stuff, but the big one was chlorine. And then we would take that and we would run the Aquasana shower water into a Brita pitcher, which kind of just makes things taste a little better. Brita doesn't get much out. It just makes it taste better. And then from there, then we upgraded to the Berkey filter. And now we're on a big Berkey filter, and we've got the shower filters on all the taps. And we're saving up for getting a whole house water filtration system. Yeah, reverse osmosis is what we would invest in. And so that's, if you can shower with and you can drink that water, you're going to be avoiding most of what's coming through the water supply. And why would you have to get a shower filter when it just runs off your skin? Well, because 30% of what hits your skin gets into your bloodstream. So you have to make sure that you're filtering that properly too. Plus, in the shower, you're heating it up. And so if there is chlorine in there, it actually turns in the gas form, which is chloroform, and highly toxic for you. So you definitely have to watch out for that. Frankenfood, we're just gonna, here's fun, beer drinkers. So glyphosate disrupts your gut lining. Fructose also disrupts your gut lining, as does gluten. The glyphosate detected in Stella, 18.7 parts per billion. Samuel Smith's organic lager, only 5.7 parts per billion. Coors, 31 parts per billion. Miller Lite, almost 30 parts per billion. Budweiser, 27 parts per billion. Bud Light's probably right on there as well. And then, oh yeah, we'll give you a nice advertisement, Peak Organic IPA. They weren't able to detect any there. So even though it's organic on this line, still had some glyphosate in it. And really, we find this with wines as well. They did a study on California organic wines. They found none that were 0 parts per billion with the glyphosate at all. So even organic wines were not good. So, but that to say, alcohol is not on the advanced plan. If you're doing the advanced plan, alcohol is not there. Why? It disrupts your blood sugar immensely. Disrupts that. It's a toxin. If you have two alcoholic drinks in a week, basically your liver is preoccupied with just processing that alcohol for the week. For the whole week. So what do I recommend? I recommend none on the advanced plan. If you're healthy, there's none of these metabolic disorders. Less than 2 in a week. Yeah, exactly.
I had in my family, my dad and brother were alcoholics, my mom and I were alcoholics, so it really wasn't different. It wasn't the
Makes fatty liver disease either way. Yeah. Yeah, we talked about a lot of this stuff. Yeah. Alcohol and weight gain inhibits fat burning, stimulates appetite, increases cravings. Fitness. Okay, so yeah, metabolic fitness is impossible without physical fitness. So you cannot avoid this and get metabolically healthy. You have to work out somehow. Now, what's the best exercise? Yes. It's the one that you will do consistently. And so there is a best type, right, for metabolic health, and it actually depends on time of day. This is something I'm learning. Yoga is best done in the evening. Walking is best done right after your biggest meal. And then high intensity interval training, which we've talked a lot about in the past as being the best one. That one is best done in the morning because it sets up your metabolism for the entire day, and then its metabolic effects last for the next 3 days. So it is the best bang for your buck. If you only have 15 minutes to work out once every 3 days, high intensity interval training. If you have a little bit more time, walking after your evening meal, doing some yoga, doing something along those lines, really, really good. But yeah, it's the thing that you'll do. We have a genetic requirement for movement. If we don't move, we need to move more often. If you have a job where you get to move, like I have a great job where I squats all day, right? It's fantastic, but you still need to challenge yourself too. If you're not challenging yourself, you're not growing, then you're going to start wasting. You're going to start wasting away. So you have to challenge yourself. It might start with just a walk in the evening. It might start with taking the stairs instead of the elevator. It might start with parking on that end of the parking lot instead of right in front of the door, right? That's going to help. I mean, Muscle is the one type of body tissue that does not require insulin to take out blood sugar. Let me say that again.
Yeah.
Muscle is the one tissue in your body that does not require insulin in order to take out blood sugar. So what does that mean? It means if you've got any type of metabolic disorder and you exercise, it's going to be easier on your body to regulate that blood sugar. So you need to make sure that you're staying ahead of that. I wanted to talk real quick about contrast therapy as a tool to help. Kind of like intermittent fasting is a tool to help. Contrast therapy is also a tool to help. Now, contrast therapy is both sauna and ice baths or cold showers, right? You get both in there. And that's kind of an extreme way to do it. You don't have to get benefits, or you don't have to do both in order to get the benefits of both. But they do different things. And the main thing that you should recognize with these is with the sauna, your body generates something called heat spike proteins. It's something that's just built in for your body to be able to handle hot conditions. So like if your family years and years ago grew up in desert regions where it got over 110 degrees regularly, your family needed a way to adapt. And so you generate heat spike proteins more readily because what they do, they work just like antioxidants. They run through your body, they clean up all the free radicals and take it out. All the metabolic byproducts that happen that are bad for you when they're in your blood system, heat spike proteins come in and they help flush those out. So it's a good thing. So going into a sauna will give you that release of heat spike proteins, and you don't have to do it for very long. In fact, the best benefit out of the sauna is getting about 80 minutes a week. 80 minutes a week every week, and you will generate the ideal amount of heat spike proteins in order to allow your body to flush out and take out it doesn't have to be from heat, but it flushes it out. Ice therapy or ice baths or cold showers, on the other hand, do the same thing but opposite. So when it's too cold, you get some metabolic byproducts of being too cold all the time. And so your body releases cold spike proteins, which work very similarly to heat spike proteins. They run through your blood vessels, they clean up your blood of those free radicals, and they make it better. If you do one right after the other, there's no additional benefit. No additional benefit. The nice thing about doing ice into hot is now you don't have to warm back up. But when we talk about the anterior mid-cingulate cortex in the brain, the part of you that grows when you do hard things, choosing to do something you don't like with this. So for me, I haven't been doing ice baths because that to me is too much of a whoo. But if you can get 3 minutes a day with your water temperature at 68 degrees, or 3 minutes 3 times a week, so just about 10 minutes a week of a cold shower. 68 degrees, that's not that cold. Like Lake Superior, which I've swam in, I dove in because I grew up in Michigan, right? That's usually around 60 to 65 in the summers. So that felt cold, but I swam in it, right? I did it. So what I do is I get in my shower, I suds all up. Yeah, I've got this expensive shampoo that's supposed to help me keep my hair. And that's supposed to sit in my hair for at least 3 minutes. So once I get that in, I got it all scrubbed in, then I take the temperature nozzle and I slowly turn it down until the water feels cold. Mm-hmm. Not until it's like, I can't stand here. Just like, okay, it feels cold. And then I just stand there and I'm usually listening to a podcast or some sort of music. And I just like, okay, a song is about 3 minutes. So I can do this. I'll like let some come to my front side, but generally I'm keeping it on my back, maybe hit my shoulders a little bit. That's enough to generate those cold spike proteins. You don't have to be fancy with it. You don't have to buy a big bathtub, fill it with ice, and jump into it. Sauna, it does take a little bit more. You gotta get your temperature up a little bit more. But because saunas typically start around 140 degrees, you only have to do about 15 minutes at a time. But the best benefit is about 80 minutes in a week. And so some people like to combine those together. They'll get a sauna with an ice bath attached to it, or they'll do a whirlpool right into the ice bath. The sauna does better, and specifically infrared does better because of how it helps with detoxification. So as part of the special with what we're doing for the 30-day challenge, if you're going to be purchasing the supplements, you also get 50% off of our prices on the infrared sauna. So the unlimited session, which is how you would be able to get those 80 minutes in a week, that's normally $100, so that would just be $50. And that's good for a month. You go for a whole month as many times as you want, so long as somebody else isn't already in there, right? I don't need 2 or 3 of you stacking up on there. But yeah, so that's part of the 30-day challenge. So thought life, we have to take every thought captive. The negative thoughts are way more important than the positive thoughts, although you can't ignore the positive thoughts as well. And we also can't focus on stress. A lot of people say, well, what's your stress management technique? I don't have one, because whatever I focus on grows. If I focus on sickness and disease, and this is a big part of the reason why I can't with the medical system anymore, they're 100% focused on the disease, on the diagnosis, on the symptoms, and how to manage that. We have to focus on health. We have to focus on healing. In the case of stress, we have to inverse it. Peace. Peace is the opposite of stress. So you have to find things in your life, invest in those things that create peace. Number one thing that you can do is take that negative self-talk and chop it off. Take every thought captive. Do not verbalize those things. When you say, I can't, guess what? You're right. Whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. Yeah, exactly. So create that peace. Take control of that. And remember, health is 100% function. So where do you want to aim? We're aiming at 100% vitality and function. What role does insurance have in your health? Why is it called health insurance? Should it be called health insurance? No, health insurance doesn't care about you. So here's their guidelines. Just a reminder for all of you that have questions for me about your insurance coverage as it pertains to your chiropractic care. Their guidelines state that care that seeks to prevent disease, promote health, and prolong and enhance the quality of life. That's healthcare. That's healthcare, is not considered medically reasonable or necessary, and goes on to say, and therefore will not be covered. Which means, by definition, has your health insurance ever covered anything that's actually gotten you healthy? No. That's where they stop. They stop where the symptoms start. They cannot take you beyond that. So, yes, the system needs to change. It absolutely needs to change. But who does it start with? With us. It has to start in our own hearts. And so we have to take some action steps today. I saw a few of you are already you're writing things down. I think we got 7 pages in your journal. Yeah, no, it's great. Now, here's the thing that I don't want you to do. Go home and do all of it. You can't. It's physically impossible. It's too much stuff. It's things I've been working on for 10 years. Even my dad, who changed things dramatically all at once, it was just the baby stuff that he changed. He picked 4, 5, 6 different things, and his capacity to change things is way greater than most of us. I would say pick 2 or 3 at most things that you learn today to implement. And maybe that's just doing the challenge with us. Maybe it's just that stuff. The challenge is kind of one thing. We're all doing it together. When you see somebody else that was in this room in the office, you can be like, hey, how's it going? How's the challenge doing? How's it going with the organic food? Have you gone grocery shopping yet? You've got somebody to help you account. That makes this easier, right? So pick the things that you can do. Go back in your notes, re-watch it. It's all recorded. It's all up there. You guys are going to continue to maintain access to this ongoing. But pick the 3 things that you can do and you can apply from this. And then guess what? Next month, when we do the Sugar Crash workshop, when we're just talking about sugar and we're just talking about diabetes, what should you do? Oh, I just learned about sugar. Dr. Jake told me all I need to know about insulin and ghrelin and leptin. I'm going to stay home. Maybe I'll listen online. But I'll probably be doing something else and won't be able to pay attention anyways. You come, right? How many times a week do you go to church? Hopefully at least once. How many times should you go to a class? All the time. I go to classes all the time. And when I go to classes, I learn better than when I watch them online. I can take my CE hours online so long as I'm live. Yeah. I learn so much more when I'm in person, when I'm taking notes, when I'm doing this. When I teach a class is when I learn the most. That's when I really get the most. So those are your action steps. So the 30-day challenge. So this is where I recommend that we start, right? So advanced plan meals only. And in the recipe book, everything's broken down, advanced plan, core plan. Some of them are good on the advanced plan. Some of them are just good on the core plan. So make sure that you have that labeled out. If you need more recipes, More ideas. There's the nutrition guide that goes with that, has shopping lists. It has what's advanced plan, what's core plan when you're buying it from the store, how to shop in the store. Those guides are absolutely helpful. Intermittent fasting. What's your first step? Are you already on a 12-hour schedule? Shorten that up to 10. If you're not on a 12-hour schedule yet, shorten that to 12 hours. Pick your times. And the most important thing with that, be consistent with those times. Don't change it from 8 a.m. is my first meal to 10 a.m. is my first meal just because it's convenient. Stick with it. Yeah. Stick with the same times all through the challenge. Break fast with a protein smoothie and supplements. That's your breakfast. We're breaking fast with that protein smoothie. If it's not a protein smoothie, make sure it's almost 100% pure protein, right? So what's a great example of that? Yeah, like an egg, right? Or 2 eggs, hard-boiled egg or soft-boiled or over easy or stir-fried, stir it up in butter, scramble it. That's a great way to do that. Get the supplements in with that so they can work for you throughout the day. If you need to break those supplements into the day, feel free to add those into the other meals as well. Spread those out.
I have a quick question. Always have protein.
First thing is protein.
That's hard for me to like aches for my stomach.
Okay.
Let's
talk.
Let's talk. Okay.
Yep.
I'm more like a celery juice coffee kind of a person.
Yep. So, did you like our protein coffee, or didn't you try it? Yeah, that's where I would suggest going, is the protein coffee, and just build up the protein so that you can stomach it, right? Because you're probably carb dependent right now with the hormones a little bit, and just knowing what I know about you.
Maybe,
yeah. So we gotta wean you onto that. So absolutely, talk to me, talk to Cheryl. We'll get you there. All right, 20 minutes of exercise a day. Does that have to be jumping jacks, up and down, punch, weights? No, it can be a walk after dinner. Yep, just get something to get your body moving. If you're already doing that, take it up a level. We have to do hard things in order to grow that part of our brain, right? Come out on Saturdays when we're doing the exercise instead of a class. We do that together in the office. Follow your chiropractic and home care recommendations. We don't want to let our nervous system fall to the side just because we're focusing on some other stuff as well. Reading. This is a great way not just to create peace, but also to create growth in our mindset. And so we're not picking up a fantasy romance novel, right? I'm talking to my wife. Yeah, it's real. Like if you're Christian, read the Bible. If you're academic, read some literature. If you're learning, if you're in like going back to nursing school, right? Start spending that time growing in that habit, even as you're prepping for that. So read 10 pages or 15 minutes daily, whichever one of those comes first. And I guess if you're reading comic books, you'll probably get through 10 pages a whole lot faster. But stay hydrated. So this is really, really key. So we talked a lot about water quality because we do need to be getting more water. Most of us are dehydrated. Some of it's due to electrolytes, but really most of it is because we don't get enough water. And where we need to be with our water intake is half your body weight in ounces of water per day. And so for me, I'll just give myself as an example, 220 pounds. So that's 110 ounces of water I need to drink in a day. So 80 ounces is not good for me. Yeah.
So in that you're including things like coffee,
so
just plain water.
So non-caffeinated coffee, non-caffeinated tea. So if it's herbal tea, yes. If it's decaf coffee, yes. If it's regular coffee, it's not taking away from your hydration, but it's a net neutral. Is basically how that goes out. If you just drink coffee all day, every day, you're probably not going to die from dehydration, but you're also not going to bump your levels up either, if that makes sense. So those are the 7 steps within that. I think, yep, those are the ones that we put in there. And then one more thing, just because we're doing this. So some of you watched this class about 2 weeks ago, and Dr. Christie and myself, we walked through the Metapower program within doTERRA. So half of our supplements over there are, well, not half, because I don't actually carry the doTERRA supplements in the office, but half of the supplements we recommend are from doTERRA. And when you need additional support to get your metabolism where it needs to be, these are very useful tools to do that. So just running through this real quick, the Metapower Advantage is probably the best of the bunch. It's a mix that has NADH and ALA and collagen in there, and then NMN, which is another great one, that help with healthy aging, but healthy metabolism as well. That's a powder that you add to water or a smoothie. Either way, I think it tastes pretty good, but it does use erythritol as the sweetener, so it is going to spike the blood sugar, or not the blood sugar, but the blood insulin just a little bit. But the rest of these here, you've got the metabolic blend soft gels, you've got the beadlets, you got smaller capsules there as well as the metabolic assist and the satiety gum. The gum is great because it's going to help give you that feeling of fullness. All of these are designed to give you that feeling of fullness without artificially closing down your stomach like something like Ozempic would. So these are good tools. If you want to jump on, we're actually starting the 30-day Metapower challenge tomorrow, which happens to coincide with when we're starting this 7-step max living challenge. If you want that, let me know. I will text you the link to get signed up for that. You'll have to order the products and we can get you a free doTERRA membership so that you can get those products at 25% off. If you already have a doTERRA membership, just go to doTERRA to get those. But if you want to see what that challenge is and what's all involved with the supplements, go to the YouTube channel. My video that I have up there doesn't have sound in it, unfortunately, but I put in the comments the link to the video that does have that. And if for some reason you can't find that, text me. I will get you that link and we can get that going for you as well. So just the cost breakdown of this for the challenge, it gives you about $546 worth of value. It's about $179. That's basically just the cost for the supplements to get going. And that's not all of them. You basically pick the Metapower Advantage, one of the metabolic blend, and then either the beadlets, the oil, or the capsules, or the gum to go along with it. You get 3 of those to get on the challenge, but it ends up only costing $179. So you can either text the word challenge to me, let me know before you go so that we can write it down on your order form, and that'll get you going. So change starts now. So what are we doing next? From here, you can pre-order your supplements or you can pick up some supplements that you need to get. Remember, everything is today 15% off except for the doTERRA stuff. The doTERRA stuff I have to sell at MSRP. I just don't make a profit on that stuff, so I can't give you a discount. The Max Living stuff is all 15% off unless you're getting the challenge bundle. Remember the protein, the cell repair, and the Max Fit. Those come at 20% off, and then if you get those 3, anything else you get is also 20% off other than the doTERRA. So fill out your sheets. The order form here will get you started on the 20% off if you didn't fill that out already. And then 2, we're going to try to stay in touch with you. The challenge details are on this sheet. If you need more assistance with that, I would start digging through that blue folder I gave you when you started care, because that has the advanced plan and core plan ingredients as well. So I know several people have left already, but before we let you go, we're going to do a raffle. So everybody got a raffle ticket? Yep, hopefully you pulled that out. Didn't lose that somewhere. We've got a few goodies to give you. That's what's been up here behind this. So we're going to start, should we start from biggest to smallest? Yep.
631.
Yep, 9989631. Okay. That's him. All right. So you get the paleo fiber, which is honestly a great way to keep your blood sugar right where it needs to be, blood insulin as well.
626.
626. All right. You also get some fiber, which is going to be great. All right. So next one.
637.
637. Excellent. So you're getting a multivitamin.
Hey,
look at that. It's prenatal, but it's yeah. Yeah. Okay.
632. 632.
Might not be here.
It may have left.
Yeah, may have left. Yeah, so we'll go.
638.
No.
Okay.
Keep running.
627.
A bunch of people left too soon. This is why you stay through the whole thing.
623.
All right, so this is great. After a busy week, some adrenal revive, get those cortisol levels back to where they need to be.
629.
All right, so this is nope, you don't get that one. That's for men.
Okay.
You're going to get the adrenal energy. So I'll help give you a little boost.
636.
All right, you get the max vitality for me. There you go.
628.
All right, adrenal energy for you.
635.
Yeah, you also get some adrenal energy. Yeah.
633.
All right, I'm going to give you a choice. Do you want the lavender, the breathe, or the peppermint?
Breathe.
Breathe it is. There you go.
634.
All right, lavender or peppermint? Lavender it is. And the peppermint.
624.
Oh, there you go. All right, I think that's all the goodies we have. No. Okay. Yes, you've got your stuff. I'll stick around for questions, but let me turn off the camera and then we can get you guys checked out for everything.